Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for being here. This is the once every few months podcast that Bus Driver and I like to do. Bus, how's it going?
What's up, man? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Um, Bus is one of my favorite people to talk about the game with, so hopefully we'll have a very good conversation today, and hopefully people in the chat can contribute and give a little bit of information and thoughts of their own. There is always a lot going on in Rise of Kingdoms, and it's fun. It's fun to talk about it. So we can cover the details of our Kingdoms bus, and we can also talk about the game in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we originally called this podcast the Kingdom Building Podcast. I don't know if we want to stick with that name or not, but part of what it was that we both are leaders of kingdoms. We're both building kingdoms, and oops, I already took you off. All right. There we go. All right. Um, and yeah, so like we both have kingdoms where a lot is going on. I was thinking today we could start talking about your kingdom, Kingdom 3092. Um, yeah, just give us like a brief update for those who, don't always watch all of your content, which I do. How things are going in 3092.
So it's for us, it's like a very exciting time. I think there's there's kingdoms that are kind of there's hope. There's and doesn't mean we'll do well, right? Because you could actually move up, get smacked, and then fall apart. But I think like right now we have momentum. We so far for this migration cycle, I think we have on the list 35 accepted, 32 are in, maybe a few more stragglers. We're taking this next pop. So our migration closes April 16th, right? So we have like 6 days. So whenever you bring in a lot of people, I think we're going to talk about how important migration is. But when you're able to bring in people, one, there's like a novelty because there's an excitement, right? Okay, we're going to move up in seeding. We're going to test and see how strong we actually are. We're going to fight some kingdoms that before we just had no chance even competing with. And we ended up doing something I hate, which is max skipping. But
Wow. Yeah, because you said you were a no skip. You were a no
I
skip
hate it.
guy.
Yeah. But once that 960 KvK was made, there's like this realization, like, fuck. Well, if we max skip, then we can actually capture people from that KvK, right? So
Okay.
we have a few that decided to leave early. I think officially, actually, I think at tomorrow at reset, that KvK ends, right? And then we'll get a few more. So that's where the kingdom's at. It's really fun. Kind of lucked into it, just like the core group that originally like started. Like there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of just uncertainty going on. So so then we've kind of been able to essentially like double in size since the initial core group, and then like a lot of people just kind of stepped up uh, as far as like leadership doing things. So it's a very uh, it's not like a single point of failure, right? There's like eight, nine of us that do different things. So there's like no real danger of burnout. We're not overly dependent on one person. So yeah, it's been really cool so far. And so this next part is okay. Well, we won our first two KBKs, but then the knock is okay. You didn't fight. You didn't find any kingdoms bigger than you. You didn't find any good kingdoms, right? So this pop, there's a lot more bigger kingdoms. Some are fairly well known, and we get to actually fight them and then see what happens. So overall, there's excitement. I think people in the kingdom were pretty understanding, just because they could see the results of migration, right? Like people like for a while, like there were just people coming in. One, there's like a wave coming in every 2 weeks, but then you could see like the alliance KP go up and everything. So it's been it's been a good off season, even though in general I hate max skipping, but it's been exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So let's see.
So
What's
what
your
about
Alliance KP right now? That'll be the first. You're already giving me a good
uh
sense of like where you guys are at, but Alliance KP is,
let me see actually. We're at 610.
610. Okay.
I think we'll be somewhere I think we'll be somewhere between 650 to 700 when we're done.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we're at like
Yeah.
410 now. I think we used to be at 500
Yeah.
billion. Now we're down to 410, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting actually. I'm gonna pull up just our KvK real quick, and let me
Yeah.
know in the chat if I'm losing Bus's webcam every time I do this. But I'm just gonna pull up our tides. I think this is the biggest tides that anybody's in right now, or like that just
Yeah.
started. And so like your KP in this pop, your KP would be the third biggest.
Yeah.
You'd be behind 1900, who you're familiar with,
Yeah.
which is 810. And
I'm
then
familiar with them.
and we got thrown in a camp with them, which was great. And then there's this Kingdom 3379,
Yeah.
which I think one of your old teammates, Stafer, is the king of.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And they've got 939 billion power, or 939 billion KP. But I would imagine your power is probably higher than 1900s, but lower than 3379s. I would bet they've got.
Let me think.
I mean, the
I just
calculations for
saw
like the
it.
top 300 are always like a little bit weird. It's not. You can't always tell it just from.
Yeah, I wanna say our I think I just saw it. I wanna say our top 300 was like 16,
16.
16
Okay.
something. Actually, I could check real quick. But yeah, you keep going. I'll pull it up.
Well, no, I mean it's interesting. I'm
We're
I'm looking at your leadership, and I am like familiar with a lot of these players, and
yeah,
you know where I'm at now in this game as someone who has been a leader for a long time, and I'm in a kingdom where we used to have a lot of war leads, and now we have less now. We had
yeah,
people retire, we had some of our best players leave. I'm looking at your group, and I'm like, they do have a lot of leaders here. Now I don't know these players, like I have not been on voice with them and stuff, but obviously Nikki is like a long time leader in the game. Um,
yeah.
Gino at least had enough like confidence that I can imagine him leading. Um,
No, 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 no. Gino doesn't talk. Gino
um,
hangs out, but he doesn't talk.
okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll say like when you guys started, the thing that I thought was big was just that Black Panther came with you guys, because he's obviously
yeah,
like someone who really understands what makes a kingdom successful and like does a lot of the stuff that's needed. But I see that you've also got like Sawtooth, who I've played against in the past.
yeah.
And like Toby's not listed on here, but I know that like Toby's like a very like dedicated person in this game at this point. And
Yeah, Toby and this other guy, Captain, are I don't know between him, those two, and like this other guy, I think Bark. I feel like they know more people in this game than anyone else I've met, which is very very helpful for us because once you have some like momentum and promise, then they're also like a really good source of recruiting. So
yeah.
yeah,
So
kind of
that's
yeah.
pretty crazy that you're getting players from that big KvK. How many players are you getting, and what kingdoms are they from?
1606, 960, and 2377.
Okay, wow. Okay.
I think
So,
in total, I think it'll be like, I mean, not that many, right? It's like maybe like seven or eight.
I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot
More
of
than five, less
quality
than
talent
10.
right there for sure.
Yeah.
So one thing I was curious about, Bus, is because like we did a recruiting effort in our kingdom in the off season as well, but
Yeah.
I could even tell this 4 months ago when we talked. Your pipeline of talent is a lot better than ours. Your standards of who you add is also a lot higher. I almost want to say there was somebody who like applied for us where I got the feeling that they had maybe been like rejected by you,
Hmm.
just because like they were just like very like, I don't know, they were just like very knowledgeable and like knowledgeable about. It's because they said he had seen us talking. he'd seen you and I talking on
Uh,
one of these podcasts, and I was like,
yeah,
I have to imagine he applied to 3092 first. They have the more like impressive kingdom. Um, and then he applied to us, and I
yeah,
think we accepted him. I can't remember who it was, but I think we accepted them. But like,
yeah,
who? I'm going through your list here. If you can see my screen, like, do you
yeah.
who? If we go through like the R2s, or I guess it would be the R3s, can you like pause me on people that are like recruited in this latest recruiting class?
Okay, so 32 are in.
So you got 32
They're,
recruits total. Okay.
yeah,
Damn.
they'll probably be. I don't know if any are in R1. They should be in R3,
Okay.
but I don't know. There's gonna be a little lag, so we could go over it. But on there, MJ is a recruit. Poe, British convict, demon. Win Hashira is technically a recruit. Acquired account. Let's see. Pasos just came in today. Bung Swa was with us in '68,
Yeah, I figured he was an old school one because I remember him.
but he actually retired and came back to us.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
See, I mean, British convict is like really good, really good
Yeah, and that's
stats.
and British convict is like a Toby connection, right? Like
Okay.
Toby is
He might have been
uh
in the kingdom that I met Toby in, which is like this like young kingdom.
yeah, and like Toby originally, I met him because he reached out for coaching, right? And then just stay in touch. And then, I had no idea he was this popular when I brought him in, but it was a lot of it is just connections, right? And uh, let's see, Lemon is
You said Lemon was new. Yep.
Lemon's new. Uh, what's you? I know it's a little lag. You're on Win Hashira right now. Qual is new. It's a very promising young player.
Yeah, see now we're starting to get into the player ID numbers that we recruited, but like the kill points are like way different. Way different. Um wow, Qual has a lot of helps for being like a pretty young account.
Yeah, like he probably will be. It's either him. There's three of them, in contention for Cav Rally in our kingdom, and for like such a well, not such a young account, but like a younger account. Like it's just a excited to see him in action.
Yeah, so what
Um,
grade would you give yourself on this recruiting class? I mean, it's with 32 in, it seems
yeah,
quite strong.
so it'll be like if it's just people on the list right now, we'll be at like 291 bill KP, 35 players. I mean, I would give us a like a A. The goal, so without I guess like without just revealing all the trade secrets, there were some metrics where during the town hall before this offseason even started, I told everyone, there are certain metrics like we want to hit, from a like number of mains, the KP range you want to play at, all those things, because it's not just about building the strongest kingdom now. Um, Depending on how you build it, it affects your matchmaking and then how you do Diplo, right? So what I told them was that 25 would be a really good migration, like getting the players that we want to get, and then like 40 would be like the very top end of like what we imagine us doing. And also we didn't want to go over 40, or like not by much, just because then there's like chemistry, there's integrating a bunch of players and things like that. So I think we'll get more than 35. I don't, probably not 40, 35. It ended up going even better than I thought it was going to. So it's actually just a really good migration, right? Like we essentially almost doubled in size, and we did it without bringing in groups. So like the biggest group was like three or four, three, I think. maybe 4, but essentially it's all like individuals. And then like I interview most of them. We have a team that helps. So it's like a lot of time and like effort going into like talking to these people, screening them. So sometimes the conversation's like 30, 40 minutes like per interview. So it was a lot of time, but it's cool to kind of see it all come together now. Well, it'll really come together when we actually get to fight a bigger kingdom and then see how it shows up on the field. But that's kind of the exciting part, right? I think the whole kingdom is kind of just excited to see, okay, like, now that we're a lot bigger, right? Like we're like we just didn't have enough players, right? Like at one point we were like 40 something mains. Now we're like, by far in first place in like Alliance mode, like level 18, all that stuff, just because we actually have enough players now to do all those things like fairly easily. So there's a general excitement.
Yeah, I mean, you know what's interesting to me, and listen, I like to be kind of like a devil's advocate, argumentative type person, just because it's in my nature, but I think it also can lead to good conversations sometimes. What's interesting to me is that you guys are now at a size, like this is a very impressive, this is like the kind of alliance, this is the kind of kingdom that I would be pretty excited to lead, like especially if I had a lot of time. I would love to be like a part of a leadership team in a kingdom like this, playing the kind of KvK that you are.
The invite, the invite, you always have the invite to come over.
Well, listen, I mean, we've got something very good going still too, you know what I mean? But like, what I would say though is like, usually you get to this point, or not usually, but sometimes you have to like win a big KvK to get to this point. Sometimes you have to prove yourself before you get to this point. I mean, obviously you guys have won like 3 KvKs in a row in this kingdom. What I think is just interesting with where the game is like you can kind of just like almost play like a PvE game. Like, not that you didn't fight like actual human beings in these other KvKs, but like, was there any doubt that you were going to win any of these wars that you were in? It's like you kind of just like have to execute along the way, and then you get the players that are just pure, that are going to be there for the real PvP.
Yeah. Here's the kind of issue in the game right now. And I don't know if we could talk about this now or talk about it later, right? Because we're going to talk about recruiting. That would be true, except the bar is kind of low.
Yeah, it is.
Right. If you're a good player, if you're, let's just say you're, whether native account or your purchase account, whatever, and where can you go? Like where can you go? And then like what are they offering? Right. It's not even like we're doing like that amazing of a job, but the competition isn't that high. It's not like these other kingdoms are taking on challenging KvKs and like punching up, right? Like it's like people either want to try to sell on wins. Oh, we won this many, or we have this many stars, or we have this many gold chests, right? Or there's some like YouTube stuff, right? We're like, oh, I want to go play with a YouTuber. But like, how many kingdoms, like really in the game, when you're just like, oh wow, these guys are actually like proving themselves. They're in a true like 50-50 or even an underdog, and then like pulling out like an impressive win. And like, I want to go be part of that. Right. Like the way I kind of pitched us is like, we're looking to set that up for this KvK and beyond. Right. But part of the reason why I decided to do that was, one, it's fun, right? You get to attract a certain type of people, but like no one else is doing that. Everyone else is, and when I say everyone, obviously there's probably exceptions, is like trying to like diplo like an easier win. There's a little pre-ally in here or there where, like they have an advantage. That's just kind of the state of the game. And part of the reason is fear. I noticed with a lot of kingdoms, if you don't win KvK, your kingdom might fall apart. Right. It's almost like if you get into the KvK and you don't win, right? Never mind, you took on like a very like challenging KvK, and then you showed out, but they just like outduked you at the end, and it was like an impressive showing. Like it's like,
Or they were just the
if you
better
don't win,
team the whole way. You could have played really good and they were just the stronger team the whole way, and there's nothing you really could have done.
yeah, right. But like you were tenacious, you didn't give up, and you kept showing up at like every zone, and you put up like a fight, right? Like it's almost like that's not a path to your kingdom surviving, right? You have to find, don't even get me started on the like the 2975s of the world. So
Well, I heard they were merging. I heard they're actually
yeah,
merging.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Right. So like, anyways, we didn't like beat anybody
Right.
that noteworthy, but it's like, what are we competing with? You know what I mean? Like that's just kind of where the state of the game is at, and I'm saying this almost like a challenge. Like I hope more kingdoms change their mentality, right? And like actually get into KvK, like really with like open mind, where okay, we want to set it up where from like the first zone, like zone 5 all the way on, right? There could be like a potential like fights, and like good fights, right? We're gonna go in like in good faith, like trying to set it up where it's not really like known who's gonna win, and then like you grind, you out strategize, you try to figure out, and like let the game kind of get back to that, right? As opposed to like a lot of these KvKs where you already know what's going to happen, and then it kind of happens, and then okay, you got to alt arc, and then off season you wait to the next one. So I think I kind of sold that a little bit too in recruiting, right? And then like now we have to like put our money where the mouth is, right? Because if we go in like Diplo like a free win or something, people will be like, this guy's full of shit. He's just like all the other kingdoms. So kind of put yourself in that situation. And I think for the most part, like leadership and the kingdom as a whole, right, that people would attract, they all kind of like buy into that, right? So yeah, so I guess that's kind of how we recruited for this cycle, right? Like there's promise. Like I don't think anyone will argue that we're not stable anymore, right? Whereas like I'll look at the stream, the chats, where like like people will send me screenshots, and literally like the negative recruiting against us was like, no, with these guys, like who knows if they're going to even be around? They might fall apart, right? So this next phase is okay. Like how do you construct your kingdom in a way where you actually go and take on a bigger kingdom and then pull off an upset, like an actual upset, not like some paper upset.
Yep. Well, I mean, you've segued me very well into talking about my upcoming KvK, but before we get there, I'm just curious, like, I feel like you're streaming in War less often than you used to. If you're in a tough KvK for this next one, do you see yourself doing much streaming while you're fighting? Or is it a change? Like when you having gone now from a player to a leader, is there a change in your streaming of your own wars?
So let me answer. Mad Mania and Lambo, like we took Bark, we're cooked. Bark is apparently like one of the most like notorious players, right? So we had him in here. He talks a lot. We'll see. So far, he's been a good addition. He's very active in the community, right? Not necessarily the most appropriate, but we're really not either. So it's an okay so far. As far as streaming, you probably, I don't know if you noticed this. I don't do YouTube as much as I did before.
I mean, you've had a bunch of videos in the last month. I was like looking at your videos over the last month to like see what you've been thinking about and stuff. And I was like, yeah, man, he made a lot of videos recently.
It's like, I don't know, it's not the same. Like before, it was like literally like my almost like my focus in the game was like really on just like, okay, what are some good ideas? And then once I actually got involved with 3092, the priority like changed, right? Like one, I've never been in leadership, like really in leadership, and done anything before. So it was learning a lot of different aspects of the game I never had to think about. But then that became the priority. Is okay, like how do you grow this kingdom? How do you stabilize it? And then like how do I use YouTube to help grow and like to help the kingdom, right? So a lot of like the goals I had before for YouTube like completely change. It's actually like how do I keep building and growing in this kingdom? I actually do a lot less now. Just a lot of people stepped up. You know, I do migration and that's about it for the most part. So I'll probably be streaming more. I don't like streaming during pass openings. So I think we have something good going with Plotto. So have you noticed like Plotto streamed our last few pass openings?
I did see that.
There's
I saw it.
one,
I remember the last one for sure. Yeah.
yeah, just something for him to do. You know, I could hop in and like chat and stuff, but then I can actually do whatever I need to do on the back end, and then not be like fully engaged, right? Uh, Pass opening for a zone is super important, right? Like, I think we already know that, but it's like even the fighting is supposed to be to just give you a little bit more of an advantage when it comes to your build or like executing whatever fort drop, whatever it is that you need to get done, right? And you have like essentially like about a 2 to 3 hour window where it's just not stable, and you need to just, you know, whether it's moving the ball over to like to do a block or whatever, right? And like when that's happening, if you're in any kind of leadership, you shouldn't be streaming, right? Um,
I mean,
Luckily, we have like
what you could do, see, look, what I've always thought about doing, and I think I did
yeah,
this once, was just like you throw the stream on and then you just like don't even pay any attention to it, right? You know, because
yeah,
obviously you do have to do things like very fast, right? When the pass opens, you got to do stuff really, really fast, and so you can just like ignore it completely. But then like it's a bad stream and nobody watches it, right? Because like you're not interacting with the chat at all, and you're not even necessarily like showing good footage because like maybe you're, you know, maybe you're like jumping on your alt to build a fort or something like that, and it's just like not
yeah,
that
no,
good of content. Are you saying it's like you don't want to stream because you don't want to, you want to be very focused, or you're saying you don't want to give away information?
it's more like I want to be focused, but like to be honest, our main war lead when pass opens is actually Panther and Nikki,
Right, right.
right? And like when they're doing that, like, you know, I'm not leading. I could technically like stream, but you know, sometimes you have to hop off and like build and stuff. It's very very chaotic during that time. Like I would much rather be watching someone else's KvK and then streaming and talking about it.
Yep.
Right. But like when
Yep.
you're actually like trying to like do stuff too, there's just like a lot of stuff going on, and then it's a little bit more challenging. But in general for YouTube, I would say YouTube kind of has taken a backseat to me once started this kingdom, right? And now it's more like to how do I use it to support the kingdom? I would say that's probably more of a priority than actually growing the channel. I think it'll kind of balance out at some point, but that's kind of been the last 5 months, you know, of my YouTube channel.
Yep. I mean, I've definitely noticed that a little bit about your channel. I had that exact thought. I was like, I bet he's just more
Yeah,
focused on his kingdom. Um, for myself, I think I'm getting a little bit more focused on YouTube. Like I was in
yeah,
your shoes for a long time, and now I'm a little bit more like YouTube is at least like an equal priority to the kingdom, and I still like really focus on our own wars, but I wouldn't mind, you know, I don't mind having like relatively easy KVKs on my main account because then that gives me more time to participate or spectate other KVKs,
yeah,
which is where I think
yeah.
my best content is. Like I think that's where I make my best content. But like so in that vein, in that sense of me talking about like what my mindset is, let me tell you a little bit about our upcoming KVK, and you can give me your opinion on it, right? Um,
Well, here before, like, just kind of, I guess, like, let me know or tell everyone, like, what's been going on in 1770? Because you know, Addy retired. You guys got into KVK. I think you won, right?
we won our last KVK with Addy. That was a pretty like easy win. We kind of knew we were going to win the whole time. We had a very good campmate.
Yeah,
We just went in. We queued for Heroic Anthem last time, and you know, listen, I think I made a good decision to queue for Heroic Anthem because I think it was stratagems, or no, it
yeah,
was Britain. It was Heroic Anthem or Britain, I think. And if we had queued for Britain, I think we would have gotten in thrown in that KVK with 3308, 1079, 2217, 29, like that big A Kingdom Britain
Uh,
KvK, right?
so
And
that's the ones we want to get into. We're
absolutely.
trying to
And
get
and
into
and
it.
I literally said when that thing popped, I
Yeah,
was like, if Addy were still here, we would have loved to be in this kingdom, this KvK, because those
yeah,
were like all the kingdoms we wanted to play with or against. Like
yeah,
it would have been great to fight 2217 again. And honestly, we would have had a blast fighting 3308, which is like a young kingdom that played very
yeah,
well. Like they were the strongest kingdom in that KvK. But instead, I queued us for Heroic Anthem, and I think that was like a very good call. It's like listen, maneuvering as a um like main officer in a kingdom that is like not on the top of their game is pretty interesting as well, because you do have like pretty high leverage in terms of you can either make some
yeah,
really good decisions and keep your kingdom going, or you can make bad decisions and it can like die off. So I
yeah.
got us
No,
into
exactly. Yeah,
Heroic Anthem. We got a strong campmate in 2965. And the first night of diplomacy, we were like, well, water looks not that we were fire camp. We were like, water looks not that strong. Earth looks a little bit stronger. We don't really care who we ally with, but we're fine with allying Earth, right? Like, it's fine. Like, if we have the advantage in this KvK, that's fine. Our campmates were cool with that too. We basically allied Earth like within like 2 hours or something, and water
yeah,
hadn't even talked to us. And so we kind of like knew we were going to win the KvK at that point. But got like a good win, like a chill win. People had fun. And, you know, we've had players step up, just like you. We've had players step up. Seba, I guess he changed his name to Mao. He is like a long time officer in our kingdom, a South American guy. And he stepped up a lot in the last like 3 or 4 months. I don't even know why he stepped up, honestly. Like, I've been playing with him for almost as long as anybody at this point. I should know him a little bit better and be like, what changed, man? Like, why did you decide to step up? But he stepped up a ton. And with all the changes to the domain system, we had to get rid of a lot of dead weight, right? We had to give
yeah. That was
vacation passes
that.
to a bunch of people, and we had
That
to
was rough.
ask a
Yeah,
lot of people to just leave, straight up leave. And Seba
yeah,
just did a lot of that grunt work, honestly. And he
yeah,
managed to get like a bunch of people to take vacation passes who we needed to get to take them. And then we also have Pratis, who migrated here maybe like 6 months or so ago. And she's a former officer in 1846. And, I think she just likes it here. She just said that the environment here is quite different. Um,
yeah,
she was like, she was like, I used to never get the kingdom gifts in 1846. I came here and got one like the first week that I was here. It was just like a
yeah.
different structure to it. And she has recruited a lot of people, right? You talked about how Toby knows a lot of people. It seems like
Yeah.
Pratis also knows a lot of people. She's got her own Discord where she sort of has her own community that she's building. And she managed to recruit a lot of people. But they're very different than the type of players that you recruited. And I'm really curious, like, what you think of the type of recruits that we got. Um, like here, this is going to be one. This is a good one right off the bat, Mr. W.
Sure.
Now, for some reason, I can't. It's not letting me pull up profiles all of a sudden. I don't know why. Let me. I might have to just like jump on my farm real quick. But I mean, basically, what we did is we recruited a bunch of very young players who had okay stats.
Yeah.
Here we go. So Mr. W, right? Like let me know how much of a delay you have and how long it takes for this profile to pop up.
I'll tell you when I see it.
Oh man, it's a little long delay, I guess.
Okay.
Maybe if you refresh the stream, it might be more up to date.
So this is live. Yeah. Okay. So Mr. W.
Yeah, Mr. W, like, young ID. Not
Yeah.
super young, but this is like, you would say this is like quite young. Not very young, but quite young.
So it's I mean, at this point, it's what, like 2 years?
Okay, this is a
2-ish
2-year-old
years?
ID. 2-year-old ID. Okay. But so
Yeah.
look,
A
I
little,
mean,
a little bit too.
only has 1.6 billion KP,
Yeah.
but has an autark showing over 30 million killed. That's really our
Yeah.
standard, right? We want people who can get 30 million kills per KvK, right? If
Yeah.
if we recruit somebody who gets 30 million kills per KvK, for us that's great. That's great. That's better than
Yeah.
a lot of our like long-term players are doing. Now this guy,
Hmm.
so this guy does all the like barb camps around
Oh yeah, yeah.
around the zone, right? Because
It's
like
crazy.
I do
Yeah.
them, I used to do them every once in a while, but this guy just grabs them all every day. So like I don't get him anymore.
Yeah.
But
We
so
have
he's
a
like
group.
he's crazy active, right? Crazy active player. Now,
Yeah.
is that like? I know that's not good enough for your kingdom, but like, do you think that's a
So
good
that's
recruit?
not. I think it's a very good recruit. So here's a few. Well, I have to see like right, like how many marches does he have? You can you can get a lot out of evaluating a player, a young player like that, by looking more at their equipment and armaments than their stats, right? Because that guy probably has played what, like 7 KvKs, maybe 6, and it's very very hit or miss. Like there's KvK 3 is usually a bust. KvK 1, a lot of times player don't even realize like they like the game until after KvK 1, right? And then like if you get like a KvK here or there where you just get no fighting, it just is what it is. So like a young player is, to me, one of the easiest to eval, because you could literally see the decision making, right? Those accounts aren't purchased, so you could get a good gauge of the spend, the activity level, and all that stuff. And then for where we're at, we're not going to be finding top imps, at least for the next 2 KvKs. So then you have essentially like about 6 months where like a young account can grow with you, and then in 6 months will that account be more ready. And then another positive is that right now we do a lot of stuff by KP, right? So their KP is lower. Another way to think about it is
Yes,
their cap hit.
exactly. Right. It's
Their
better for the
salary cap hit's
matchmaking.
lower.
Yep.
Yes. So like went from matchmaking to Diplo, and then uh, there's just like a lot of like, and they're not in danger. They're not as in danger of retiring, right? Or like being burnt out from like playing the game for too long and just like checked out. There's still like like that guy is not going to be doing bar cams in another year.
I don't
Like,
know,
it's just
man. I
over.
still do them. I still
Oh,
do
okay, all
barb
right.
camps. So
Like twice a day though. Twice a day. That's a lot, right? So, well, maybe he is. Who do I put it on?
Yeah, he might be.
But at some points, like as players get further along, like that, the enthusiasm's not the same, right? So when you have some of these younger players, you don't want to hold a kingdom full of them, but having like a not like 20 of them is actually a huge positive for a lot of kingdoms. Um, if you're not close to a full alliance, right? Uh, that player would be way more value added than just having a blank spot, right? Like, why would you not have an active player that doesn't really count that much towards your KP, that brings all these other things that could grow with you? Like it makes no sense for me. So not everyone thinks the way I do about this. Even within 3092, we have different opinions about it. I'm notoriously kind of like a young player simp. I think there's a lot of value to mixing them in with bigger players. And if you look through our kingdom, you'll notice that's kind of one of the strategies we take in. There's like a good mix of like young-ish to very young players to like more established bigger players, and they're all mixed together, right? So Mr. W, I don't know. I don't know if we would have taken him. That account, like an account like that, probably like a 170 something ID at that one KP, or some of the younger players were taken, right? But like it's the same idea. Um,
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going through a
yeah,
bunch here. I've just on stream here. I've been going through a bunch of
yeah,
our new recruits, and they're it's all of that template. It's all this template, or not all of them, but a lot of them are this template of like. But here, I'll pull up another one here, just so you can see
yeah,
it. It's like, I mean, this guy is again a 1.6 ID. He's got 1
yeah,
million KP or 1 billion KP, 53
yeah,
million power, but he did 33 million kills on his autark. And this guy's
yeah,
also super active. Like this guy's got a ton of farms. Zambucci,
yeah,
ton of farms, ton of farms.
Yeah.
Now, listen, there's an issue here where like I don't know how much spending some of these players do, because spending matters too. Spending can, I mean, would you rather have someone who is free to play and has an autark with like 35 million, or would you rather have someone who has like an autark of 25 million or 22 million, but they say they're going to spend $150 every KvK? I feel like I would rather have the spender, you know.
I mean, ultimately, you just want people that that's adding value, you know. And there's like a soft cap, right, which is one alliance. You could go above one alliance, but then you have to, you know, deal with some other problems, or you have to address some other issues and culture stuff. So like right now, the only big kingdom that can make that work is 1093, right? Like I think every other kingdom has has kind of given that up. Uh, but like if you have like an empty spot in your alliance, you know, like young players are like a great way to actually like fill it in. And then I feel like more kingdoms should be taking this strategy, especially like a mid A kingdom, right? Because usually like those native players, like that Mr. W, like all these players, right? They're probably like one of the best native players in their wherever they came from, right? But there's still like it's still some lag time for their account to actually be like big enough to be able to compete with the older accounts. So like for like a mid A kingdom, you know, where you could fight like a range, like they're actually like very, very valuable.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think first, I think this is sort of what 1093's recruitment last time was like. A lot of, not like the kind of KP that we recruited, but like young players
Yeah, I know.
and, just like
Because
unproven young players. Thank you for the dono. I'm going to see the name here in a second. I don't want to,
it's Lambo.
Lambo, thank you for the dono. Very much appreciated.
Yeah,
And I think he's
I
talking
know
about like,
1090.
go ahead.
Yeah, I know 1093 is doing that because we competed for some young promising accounts, and you know we lost. We won like a few, but we
You
lost
can't blame. I
most
mean,
to
hey,
1093.
listen, you can't
Yeah,
blame anybody on that one. I mean, we
yeah,
talk about like kingdoms that have actually proven themselves. 1093 is like a super well run kingdom. Like
yeah,
they deserve all the talent that they get. But yeah, that's sort of like where we're at, which is like we had a very good recruiting in the off season as well. And one of the things that's nice about all these young active players is like they do a lot of forts. So we've had like
yes,
a concerted effort of doing barb forts. We keep track of, we have a fort tracker now that keeps track of how many forts people are doing every day.
yeah,
I do
yeah,
like 10 forts a day, which is honestly to me like not that easy to do like steadily every single day. Maybe some people say that's nothing, but to me 10 forts a day is like a solid amount of effort in the off season. And I'm like middle
yeah,
of the pack, or there's like, there's 30 or 40 mains and farms who are like ahead of me at the end of the week in terms of like how many forts that they've done. And so, yeah, we've got like we're doing like more forts than we've done in a very long time. And
yeah.
we did level 18 alliance mobilization last time. We'll likely do level 18 again this time because we're in Eve of the Crusade. So we'll do like a bunch of training quests on the last day. So like all those things are going very well. We roll into the KvK. We decide to queue for tides rather than stratagems because stratagems is one of the more demanding maps from a war lead perspective because it's like it goes on for so long and you just have to
It's
like it's
super
constant.
big
Yeah.
Kingsland.
Yeah, big Kingsland, like, and it's
That's how
constant,
Kingsland.
you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And so like we're sort of more going towards like the HA King of All Britain tides type KvKs where there's like a definitive beginning and end to like each phase of the KvK.
yeah.
We just think that suits us better. So we queued for tides. We saw some of the kingdoms that were queued with us. 1900 was the biggest kingdom that was queued with us, and so I'm like, oh well, like I'm already thinking like, how can we compete with 1900, right? Like I'm going for my daily walk, and I'm like, all right, well, they do have uptime and downtime. If we just have this like steady 24-hour presence, does that get the job done, or do they just like decimate us trade wise in their uptime. Anyway, then we get thrown into a camp with 1900, so it's like problem solved. That's all good. Here, I'll bring up I'll bring this up again of the KvK that we're looking at. We're in Earth camp, 1770s in Earth camp. We're with 1900. Our other two campmates are strong as well, although we didn't really, you quickly look at the kingdom. I think one of these two has like 7 stars, so we're like, well, they're probably pretty good too.
Yeah.
I've got
So
nothing to.
Your KvK's over, right?
No. We're like on
you just started.
We're on day 2 of Eve.
Oh yeah. I forgot you messaged me.
Yeah. Because I thought you guys were queuing for this. I thought that that you in 1981 and stuff were queuing for stratagems this time actually.
We're both doing Keener in this upcoming one. There's a group chat where all the bigger kingdoms are in, trying to line everything up to see we could queue together. So it should be a fun KvK.
Yeah. So what happened here was like, I'm not involved in diplomacy, but this was like 2 nights ago. Matchmaking comes out. I'm like 3/4 of the way through a bottle of wine. So I'll give you like the true, like what I said in the background about this, right? And like it's other people doing the diplomacy and they didn't even respond to anything I said. They're just like making their own decision. I was like, listen, we're like a super strong camp. Earth or Fire does look strong. Fire's a strong camp. You see, they've got more power than us, slightly less KP. We're not going to ally Fire, but I'm like, okay, on the Tides map, I don't think Crisscross is really that bad because everyone would get a fight in Zone 5, and then I think Tides is it looks like it's structured slightly different than HA, but maybe they are structured the same way. But anyway, Crisscross seemed fine. Water seems a lot stronger than wind. If we ally with water, we'll have a chill victory. If we ally with wind, it's going to be tough. But let's just defer to what our campmates want to do. I personally don't care. Let's defer to what our campmates want to do. And I think that's what Seba and the other diplomats did. They just like went with what our campmates wanted. And our campmates wanted to ally with water, right? They wanted to ally with water. Water wanted to ally with us. And we made like a very quick alliance there, right? And
all right, so you guys are feeling pretty good about this one.
Well, but here's the thing, right? Like Stafer, I don't know how well you know him, but I guess he's the king of 3397. I'll go and look at this kingdom real quick. I didn't know anything about them, but apparently they had contacted 1900 and 3397. They were the 2 biggest kingdoms in this one, and they talked ahead of time. They were talking to each other ahead of time. We didn't know that. Nobody else knew that. They talked on that night and were like, well, I mean, listen, 3379 said 2 things. They said, we want either left versus right or top versus bottom. Now, top versus bottom is like ridiculous. That's the 2 camps with the most KP. Left versus right is what they wanted. I can totally understand that that's what they want. They didn't get it, and I guess they sent a mail out that night, a kingdom mail out that night, like, we're just going to do a rest KvK, don't spend any money. We'll just do we'll do no skip next time. So we'll see what happens. Really? We'll see what happens, but
that sucks.
I mean, what do you think about my attitude that I know if we ally with water, it'll give us the advantage, but I don't mind doing that. Now, I don't think I think I had 0 impact, right? Like I think that our kingdom had 0 impact on this outcome because I think 1900, like there's some sort of beef there with 3379, and water wanted to ally with us. Like there's no appetite to like not do what the alliance is, right? But like I mean, should I have been like, oh, we should ally with wind, that's the right thing to do, that's like the most fair? Or is it fine to say, let's just ally with water and have a chill win?
So there's some kingdoms I noticed And I didn't really get why until I got to kind of experience it in Diplo. But before, if you asked me this like a year ago, I would blame the kingdom that's sitting out. Right? There's just some kingdoms that just like to sit out, take the ball, go home, wherever. Like because that's how you feel like you got shafted, or in Diplo, the way to inflict maximum pain on everyone is just take your ball and go home and just not fight. Right? Then everyone gets screwed. And I would always blame the kingdom that sat out. Uh, Specifically, and you guys were in that KvK, the one where 2975 and 2748 were on the
Right.
same map, right? And then you start kind of noticing, oh, there's a pattern with these Viet kingdoms. 2489 is part of that group too. There's like a surprisingly high amount of kingdoms that decide to sit out when they're on the map with those three kingdoms, right? And then after experiencing it, personally in Diplo, I'm like, oh, okay, like I get what, like I still don't think kingdoms should do it, but like having personally experienced it, I'm like, oh wow, okay, like if you get on the map with these like Viet kingdoms that just do this, and you feel like you just got played for like 2 days, right? Like what can you do, right? Because if you fight, you're just going to be feeding them KP. Like the way to actually inflict the most damage is to sit out. Um,
I mean, it depends though, right? Because
yeah,
like when we were in that KvK together, right? Like
yeah,
we decided to fight, and then we went into zone 5 against 2975.
yeah,
And I mean, I called our shot before that. I said we're going to beat you
yeah,
guys in zone 5. And then we
yeah.
did. We wrecked
You
them
guys
in
smoked
zone
them.
5. We smoked them.
Yeah,
We completely smoked them. And like the thing
that's
about Fire
yeah,
Camp in this KvK is Fire Camp could just fight us in zone 5. Right? Like there's
yeah,
no world where this is not a fair fight between these two camps. They have more
right,
power, we have a little bit more KP. Right? Like
right.
it's a fair fight in zone 5, and they could, regardless of everything else, they could just have like a very good fight in zone 5. I personally don't think they would beat us. Like I honestly just think, I'm pretty sure we would beat them, but like
Yeah,
they could potentially do well enough to like prove something, right? They could prove
and
something.
that's the second part I was gonna say. It's like, okay, clearly they're gonna be the underdogs, right? Fire and Wind is gonna be
Yeah.
the
And I
underdogs,
guess Wind has like a camp that's, or a kingdom that's supposedly dead. Like the
right?
biggest kingdom here, Kingdom 3060, 22 billion power, low KP. They're supposedly dead. I mean, they're first in Eve, but obviously that doesn't matter. I mean,
Right,
dead can mean a lot of
right.
things, I guess.
Now, I just this is my opinion, and maybe someone can you know prove me wrong. I've never seen a kingdom just take their ball, go home, and just sit out, and then not end up dying within the next three KVK, like in two KVKs. Okay, like you're gonna kill your kingdom because once that is even a option, like we're like, okay, you're gonna do that. I know me personally, first chance I get, I would migrate out. I just don't want to be in a kingdom where a KvK is an option. And I think a lot of people that like fighting have that mentality. And a lot of people that like fighting also look for things like that. And there's like a reputation of the kingdom too. Like even if you got screwed, fine, like fight. Like what if I was 3375, right? I'm 79. I'm assuming they're the camp lead.
Yeah, yeah, they're
Freaking
the biggest one.
hype up your kingdom. Like your KvK could just be that zone 5 where you go all out.
Mhm.
Like just like fine. It's not fair, whatever, right? Like they pre-allied all this stuff.
There's no
Fight at some
pre-ally. It
point.
was just
I know,
two
I know,
camps that,
I know, but
decided to,
that's what they're gonna say. But
yeah.
like, but if you really feel like you got shafted, well, you have a chance to fight this kingdom like with this camp 1v1, and it could be really fun, and you can still have a good time, and like you can still show out, and like the people in your kingdom would appreciate that. It doesn't really hurt your reputation, and like there's just like a different way to go about it. So I get the human emotion of just like being pissed off and wanting to set out. It's not good for your kingdom.
Yeah.
I just never seen it work.
I mean, we were pissed off, right? When we
Yeah,
had the bad matchmaking
yeah,
against the Vietnamese kingdoms, we were all pissed
yeah,
off about it.
yeah,
And the thing I said when I talked about it with Dirty Dan, I was like, fine, you know, you have the right to do this, right? You have the right to structure the allies however you want, but just admit it. Like, just admit that you have the advantage, right? Because there was a lot of like just
Oh yeah,
gaslighting.
there were.
They sort of
Oh, like
gaslighted
yeah,
their own
we're
alliance to be like,
yeah, we're
these
weak and all this
treacherous, yeah,
stuff.
yeah, like these
Yeah,
treacherous guys
yeah,
on the other side are doing this and
sure.
that. Look, listen, I think I'm the only YouTuber in this KvK. I'm freely admitting that we have like a big advantage. Like, I freely admit that. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I don't see like the downside to that. Like, I don't see any downside to that. And I certainly would never gaslight my own members and be like, oh, this is fair, and everything about this is like perfect. You know, this was perfect matchmaking. You know, I would never
yeah,
say something like that, right? Um, but like, yeah,
yeah.
for
Now,
me, it's like, I don't know. I've got a lot of stuff going on in my life. If we were to ally with this weak camp, yeah, maybe we would
yeah,
win. Maybe we would win, but it would be a pain in the butt.
yeah,
And like, for me personally, like, what could I have done in this situation? It's like, first of all, it's a bad idea to stand in front of a moving train in general. Like, it's just generally bad to do that, because all the momentum and what everyone in our camp wanted, and what everyone in water camp wanted, was to ally together, right? That's what all the leaders wanted.
yeah,
So like, if you are ever going to be the person who stands in the way of that, right? Like, if Addy Nava was still the R5, if we were still the old 770, there is certainly a possibility that we would have said, that Addy would have said, maybe he would have discussed it with the rest of us, maybe he wouldn't have. He would have said, listen, we're just going to ally wind, like, whatever.
yeah,
Now, he would have had to have a
yeah,
very tough conversation with a bigger, stronger kingdom, 1900,
yeah,
about that, right? And maybe he would have won, maybe he wouldn't have won that. But like, if you're the one who's going to stand in front of that train, that puts a ton of responsibility on your kingdom and on you individually to like carry, to carry
Oh,
that, to carry the team, right? And Addy,
oh,
you
trust me.
know,
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah,
he used to carry
yeah,
and play all day, but then he had to retire. Like, then he burnt out and had to like do other stuff, because that effort is like a crazy amount of effort. And
yeah,
so it just doesn't make any sense to me to stand in front of that train. Like, why torture myself, and why put a burden on myself that like I literally can't handle? Like, I can't carry 8 kingdoms to a multi-day Kingsland victory where like the other team is way stronger than us. Like, I might have work. I might have work during Kingsland and not be able to play at all, right? Like, there's just no way to stand in the
yeah.
way of that. Um, and yeah, I mean, there's just like so many people and so many voices who are involved in these kind of decisions that like there's just an inertia to it. And
Oh, for sure. There's inertia, right? Because like you're the one that like. So for example, no, not everyone in our kingdom are going to be on the same page on. Let's just say we were you guys, right? Me personally, I would be like, listen, uh, just how I went. Okay. That is the most there's the most unknowns in that matchup, right? Like it's most even. And I think like overall it could lead to something that's the most fun. Doesn't mean everyone in leadership is gonna agree with that.
no,
You know,
definitely not. Definitely not.
yeah. Now I think like within our kingdom, uh there's the kind of the makeup, like the players recruit, like they all just love fighting, you know. So uh like taking a matchup where you essentially have like the maximum chance of fighting would appeal to them. But like I could easily see how like if that wasn't say like the culture in the kingdom where like you just put us in a matchup where it looks like we just took on the weakest, like we might lose, like, and then it backfires, like you could also, you know, lose trust. So a lot of it comes down to just like what was your kingdom built on in the first place, you know, like did the people actually um like what did they want, you know, what did they sign up for, like because like you said, if your kingdom wants something else and then you like go out of your way to put them in a position to something that they're questioning, and then it doesn't work out, you could lose a kingdom really really quick that way too, you know. So it's like I think every situation is a little bit different. This one, I would. It's not too egregious, right? It's slightly, but not too egregious.
Yeah, it's
But yeah,
it's only because like some of these can't. It's only uh sort of egregious because like some of these kingdoms are just like crazy strong. Like this kingdom 2563. I just like looked at
yeah,
them like real quick, and like their
yeah,
leader, their R5 literally has an Ark of Osiris record of
yeah,
86 wins and 11 losses. Like
yeah,
that's a crazy Ark record. And I was like, I don't really want to like fight against this dude as like an underdog, you know? Like, I mean,
yeah,
they obviously have like a very good strategical mind to have an arc record. That's like one of the best arc records I've ever seen. I guess if I looked at 960, I'd probably see a better arc record. But I
yeah.
mean, it was just like super, super good. I think they finished, let's see. I mean, they finished in the top 32 once in the realm of Anubis, which is like a strong realm. So, and then like 1900 we know is like very, very good. 1900, you guys fought against them when you fought
Yeah,
against us, right?
yeah,
We know they're super, super strong. And then we don't necessarily punch above our weight like we used to, but we certainly don't punch below it, right? Like we're
yeah.
certainly you're gonna get good value for the 410 billion KP that we bring to things. And so anyway, that's like when you look at just the numbers, it's actually pretty even. I mean, I can pop up something where like the numbers are dead even, and one of the leaders of 1900 was like, "What's like what's unfair about this? Like, what is unfair about this? They have 3 billion more deads, and we have 5 billion more KP. Like, and they have 28 billion more power. Like, what's unfair about that? If you look at those stats, it's literally like a fair KvK. Um, it's just when you have to kind of like look inside the numbers a little bit to be like, oh yeah, one team is like a 80 or 90% favorite. I mean, what's crazy to me, Bus, is like the last time I fought in a war where I didn't know who was going to win before it started was the war against you guys. And that
Really?
was literally like a year ago. That was a year ago. And you know
Yeah.
what? It's probably the same. That's probably true for you as well, right? That's probably the last time you went into a war where you didn't know who was going to win.
Well, this is embarrassing because I actually thought we were gonna win, and then we
Well, but
fucking
it felt
won.
different. I imagine it felt
Yeah,
differently
yeah.
at least than like your last three, or
I
or
think we're
the
pretty.
or the one
We
after
were
that.
pretty. No, we were pretty confident, and we just choked it up. Like we're not even choked it up. You guys just beat us, but
Well, this
so
is something I
that's
wanted
kind
to
of
say. Like at the
that's
beginning when
kind
you
of
were talking
embarrassing.
about the passes, you were talking about like how important the first 3 hours was
Yeah,
of
that's. I
like a
still have
KvK.
PTSD. I still have PTSD from the pass opening, the KvK where we were allies. That was
Oh, well,
one of
no, but
the
in the
most.
in the war that we
Yeah,
fought against each other, right? Like
yeah,
this isn't the first 3 hours, but like literally, if you guys had gotten, you guys did 3 4 drops.
yeah.
One had
We
an
could,
okay chance. One had no. The second one had no chance, and then the third one had
yeah,
like a very good chance of working. Like we were very
yeah,
nervous about that one. If you guys had gotten, this was day one, this was night
yeah,
one. If you guys had gotten one of those fort drops down, you would have won the
yeah.
KvK, right?
I yeah, man. That
You would have
if
because
the
like the fort wall
yeah
wouldn't have existed. You would have broken the fort wall if those fort drops had worked.
if
You
the
know.
Kinsland wasn't as big, I think that's the. I actually learned a lot from that experience, which actually like really shaped kind of some of the thought that went into building this kingdom. Uh, being at a numbers disadvantage is very difficult, and what you one of the one of the, and a lot of kingdoms are built this way, and you can see how they're like KvK records really spotty. If you're a strong one alliance kingdom and you're not built right, you're going to lose a lot of KvKs, just with the way matchmaking and Diplo works, because you just like you might have higher quality, but you won't have the numbers. And there's a lot of different ways where you could get screwed from like multiple kingdoms in a camp versus you, right? Which is kind of what happened to us and in that KvK with you guys. There's just like a lot of ways where you could get screwed. So you could look good on paper, but you're not going to win a lot of KvKs. And I don't want to name kingdoms because there's kingdoms that fit that mold, and you can look at their KvK record and it kind of fits that. But I really actually learned a lesson in that KvK is that, you know, being a strong one alliance kingdom is actually not the way to go for most kingdoms. Like,
do you think you mitigate that by having do you think you could have mitigated that by having a downtime crew? Like, is that the way to not have that like kryptonite kind of thing? Is you just have like a downtime crew that minimizes the damage at that time? Because I'm trying to like think about what you're saying here about like there's a certain type of, because I feel like every kingdom is built the same. Like I feel like every big A kingdom is built the same. Some just have more KP than another. Some might have more leaders than another, but I don't think lack of leaders was 2268's weakness at all. I mean, honestly, you guys were like a very strong kingdom, actually.
Yeah. So for example, right, like if I queue into a map, and there's a chance that to quote unquote make it fair, I'm going to be in one camp, right? Which is what we're fire camp, and then we're going to be fighting essentially other camps where there's like 2 or 3 solid kingdoms that are smaller than, but they're solid, and they could put way more numbers out onto the field. I'm already at a huge disadvantage going in.
But does that really happen anymore? Does it really happen that like one camp is like a bunch of elite fighters, but then the other camp has like way more numbers? I mean,
so it happens
because like obviously it doesn't work at Imperium level, right? Like the group of 3 in that 960 KvK were not. This was the one thing I was wrong about ahead of time. That group of 3 was not stronger than JST, right? They were not stronger than 1365.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I mean the numbers did not bear that out. The numbers showed that 365 was much more productive.
Between 365, 1606, 2975, you know, because I played a lot on the 1093 side. The 1365 side was actually they actually were the how do I say this? They punched the weakest in the open field out of the 3, and they were the biggest kingdom.
Sure, but they still had way more KP than the group of 3. Way more KP.
They did, which you know, but like just if I had to be honest, and you already know I don't like 2975. They were actually the best. Like just fighting them in the open field.
Interesting.
I
thought 1606 was strong. You know, just because they had such a big recruiting and stuff.
The 29, yeah, but the 2975 and just like these Viet kingdoms and their pilots in general, they're like vicious on the field. They're aggressive.
Yeah, I remember fighting them. They were tough. Sure.
Like, you know, this is some stuff, you know, I want to go over, like, you know, we go over in our kingdom and like how to maximize the open field. Like they're aggressive, right? They're not stupid, but like the best way I could describe it is it just feels like they're constantly pushing up on you. Whereas like some of these other kingdoms, they're like push pull, like it's like there's huge gaps.
I mean, there might be something going on there. I don't know. The rumor when we fought them was that there was something going on there.
Yeah, but like and maybe right, but like fighting 1818 felt the same. It's just like it felt like they really maximized what they have. So maybe their accounts weren't better than 1365, right? But whatever they were doing, however they were playing, I just straight up 2975 or 1365. 2975 just felt like better at open fielding. You know, like that's the best way I could, like they were just more there's just smaller gaps between like when they retreat and they were just like willing to stay like near the front, and they would push up on you, and it's just harder to fight them in the open field.
Yeah.
And then trust me, I don't want to give them credit, but you gotta give.
No, you gotta give people credit. I mean, listen,
you just gotta give, you know, like you gotta give credit. I don't like the way they do Diplo, right? Like, you know, and how they kind of manufacture a lot of their wins, but they're good at open fielding, you know. So,
I mean, listen, I fought against 1818 about a year and a half ago. I was very impressed with everything about 1818. I thought They fought very well. They fought smart,
1818, yeah.
and like they had good
1818 felt
vibes
the
too.
same.
Like it was actually a very friendly KvK.
Yeah, they felt the same because I actually I streamed this. You know, it was 2 days.
Yeah, I watched I watched a little bit of that. Yeah, for sure.
And the 18 fighting 1818 felt really similar to fighting 2975, right? It's a lot of the same pilots are playing this, and they're just good at open fielding, right? And so like fighting them, it's like okay, there's some stuff we could take away here, and then make sure that we're doing that in our own kingdom because like that style of fighting the open field is just way more effective, and luckily for us, like 3092, we have a pretty good base for open fielding. 68, was not the best at open fielding, but for whatever reason, like the group we brought in has already been is already pretty good at open fielding and like aggressively pushing the open field without being stupid. So that's something we're looking to build on going into this next KvK.
I mean, what I think is interesting is that maybe a year and a half ago in this game, what people were saying to me, what my teammates were saying to me when we would be fighting in the open field and I would be setting the ball markers, is that what some of the best kingdoms in the game do, and I think they might have cited 2489 on this, is that they would attack into the middle of the ball. They don't attack the front of the ball, they attack into the middle of the ball, and they don't really retreat. And some of like the best players in our kingdom, because we would sometimes struggle in the open field, would throw a little bit of shade my way in terms of like we're not being aggressive enough. And what I said at the time was like, we just don't have those types of players. Like we don't have players with bottomless resources and speed ups. We don't have players we just don't have enough players who are willing to be that aggressive. And so if a few of us do that, we're gonna go way ahead of our ball and we're gonna kind of get wrecked. Like it just didn't make sense. It felt like it was too much effort for too little gain at that time. But the thing is now that no one does that anymore. Like, yes, some people might be more aggressive than others, but like, listen, Seagull talks about it in his videos about like what kind of marches you should have in the open field. And he describes this game as a back and forth fighting game. And, 1960 was like aggressive in the field because they were winning most fights, like fair enough. But there wasn't some sort of emphasis on like never retreating, right? There is now like a very accepted reality that you have to go back and forth. And that reality did not exist like a year or two ago. And like there were a lot of people saying like, no, you got to just go in. You have to go in and you can never back up. And I just feel like that like strategy or that philosophy has largely died at this point, which I think is interesting.
It's uncommon. We actually use it in 3092.
Yeah.
But it only works.
But we'll see. We'll see if you use it.
It only works if everyone does it together.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
It is very good. Like it is very good, but like, the thing is like the open field fights now, and especially in these bigger KvKs, and I think even if you were to fight, who are some of the other kingdoms that might be in the KvK that you're in?
So 1981, 1903 is probably going to go Orleans.
Oh, okay.
So they're not going to be in our 2638, 1718.
Okay, I mean that's
1719.
Yeah, these are all like strong open field kingdoms, right? Like these are all very strong open field kingdoms who have like their strategy is largely going to be
1.6.
Okay, yeah. Like the strategy of some of these kingdoms is largely going to be like, we will fight you in the open field like all day and all night. Like when 1718, we were campmates with them against 1818. There were the first night of the KvK, we were like burning and progressing in like the other zone 6, and 1718 and 1818 they just went back and forth in the field for like 8 hours, right? There wasn't even a flag. Like there was a space between the two, right? Where they were just fighting in the open field. And like, and I mean, if 1903 was in that queue, they would happily just fight in the open field all day long, right? So like, even at your level, it's like, there's like just a meta where you're fighting in the open field for hours all the time. And it's just like very hard to like constantly micromanage your entire team to have them like go ham into every fight. Like it's just more natural to just let people dance back and forth. And like there are
There's
things you
a
can do inside of that. You can still have good teamwork. I don't necessarily want to like say all the things that you can do, but it largely
right.
involves not being a trade junkie at the back of the ball, and it means like being in a position where like you can do maximal good stuff for your team. You can still have
Yeah.
teamwork within that, but it's just like, I mean, like Bus, it may work for you, but it's like if 1960's not doing it, if 2489's not doing it, then like I just don't think that's the meta anymore.
You don't do it all the time. It's more like selective, right? But it I probably shouldn't I probably should
Yeah,
talk
no,
more
no,
about it.
it's
But it's
it's
a I'll just say this, it's something we do. Now having said that, I play for 1093 a lot this last KvK, right? And going in, the reason why I want to play for 1093 is because like out of all the kingdoms, I like the way they open field the best, right? Like watching it, I'm like, oh my god, like they're really coordinated. They being in the kingdom, what I realized was that they're not actually doing anything special when it comes to war leading and open fielding.
yeah,
Okay,
960
but
isn't really
what they
either.
what they do have though is they have a shitload of people in voice, right? So there's like almost like 300 people in voice, and then when you have that many people in voice, and then there's like a good culture of only maybe like 5 to 10 people at most, closer to 5 people talking. Uh, when they call something out, and then most people are doing it, it looks very very impressive. But the biggest thing with 1093 that I took away from them is that as a kingdom, there's a culture. There's a culture, and I feel like they have to be this way because they almost always have a numbers advantage. I feel like I'm swimming in a lake with a bunch of piranhas, right? If you're not near the front of the ball, you're just not going to get kills because anything else that's out of position just disintegrates. So you're either pushing really, really far up, and then it feels like everything else is also pushing up. And like, I have not experienced that kind of aggressiveness in open field in any other kingdom. Even when 1093, there's a few times when it was downtime, right? So they had less people. They were actually losing in the open field. Like that culture is still there, right? Like, well, there's a stalemate
Culture of
until it's
being at the front
broken.
of the ball.
Everybody is pushing towards the front.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like, right? Now there's a stalemate until the ball just breaks, and then you're just like running for your lives, right? Like that happens at 1093 too. But until that happens, everyone is still pushing up front. Now I even this I had a really long off season, so I'll go and pile in a bunch of other different kingdoms to get a feel. It's very very noticeable once you have like a baseline for like the most aggressive. I would say 1818 and 2975 are close, but 1093 is probably even more aggressive. And then there's a few kingdoms that I piloted in that it was like night and day difference. Like it literally just felt like we weren't maximizing our open field after playing in 1093 and then comparing it to some of these other kingdoms, well-known kingdoms. So
Do you think it's
never
because they just
mind
didn't
like
have like a war lead on like pushing the action all the time? Because I mean, to me,
there
that's one
there
of the key things is like if you're a 1093 or a 960,
right,
like you have a bunch of people on voice, you have a few people talking, but those people who are
right.
talking are like working in shifts, right? It's
Yeah.
different people at different hours of the day. You have that division of labor that allows you to have like somebody online almost 24/7 who is just like pointing everyone in the right direction and maybe doing some coaching about like being aggressive or whatever else it may be, right?
So for 1093 specifically, there is no coaching on open fielding. Like they're literally just like meet over here at 1 and then push. That's it. Right. So there's like I thought beforehand they're
Well,
gonna be
what
like,
if
okay,
like
we're gonna do
somebody, what
this.
if a whale
Yeah.
runs into like, all right, this is like a Chadsky move when he fought against us, right? He would just like
Yeah.
run into the middle of our ball, right?
Yeah.
And then all of our like average players would like chase Chadsky, right? And it was
Yeah.
ridiculous. And you'd have like
Yeah.
25 marches attacking a guy who's completely out of position and somebody's going
Right.
to kill him, right? If somebody does that in 1093, obviously someone's going to say something, right? on voice? Or if a group,
Oh,
of
no,
1093 people do that, obviously someone's
oh,
going to
they're
say something.
no, no, don't worry. They're pretty ruthless in voice there. You know, like if you get your feelings hurt easily, you probably don't want to be in voice there. They're pretty ruthless.
Right, right.
But like, but for example, I'm just some pilot, right? They never told me what to do. But like playing in that kingdom, or fighting in that kingdom with everyone else, the best way I could describe it is there's already an established culture of how to fight in the open field, which is to be aggressive, not stupid. They don't charge into the group into like the middle of a ball, someone else's ball, like Chatsky, right? Because you'll just melt. Like at that level, you're just gonna melt. But like when you have that many people working together that are always like rolling forward and being aggressive, even when they're losing, um, like like I don't feel like when we lost a open field fight, like we could have done more, right? They were just better than you. Whereas like some of these other kingdoms are piloted in, like when we lost in the open field, I'm just some pilot. I'm not gonna say shit, but like I'm like, you know what? We could have actually done a lot better. Like this,
Half of you guys
there's
could have
gaps.
sad faces, right? Sorry, I keep interrupting you. I'm just
Not even so much sad facing. It's just
well,
like
well, people leave.
like
Like pilots just leave. They walk away with half health all the time. Like
well,
most open field
not even
fights are lost. Like they're just lost in like a single moment. Like one team gets
yeah,
a
but it's
slight edge, and then the other team just retreats. And
it's
the
not
people,
so much even like, oh, they're refreshing when they have half health. It's like you're on the front lines and then you retreat and you're retreating way too far. Right? It's like maybe in 1093 they only retreat like, a centimeter back to just get back into position to push forward again. And then in another kingdom, they're retreating back like 4 centimeters on the screen. Right? And like when there's a culture of people doing that, like a lot more people doing that, and then you're used to one thing, it becomes very noticeable. Like I could, again, I don't want to like throw any kingdoms on the bus, but there's just kingdoms where like, oh wow, okay, this kingdom is better at open fielding. This kingdom's not as good. Whether it's like I'm piloting, I'm fighting on my side or fighting against them. Like you start being able to tell, like, okay, there actually is like a difference in uh how a kingdom open fields. And it's beyond just like how good their account is. It's almost like a kingdom wide like cultural mentality of like just how aggressive everyone is and willing to all like stay near the front. And then when they retreat, it's just to get back into position to push like up again. And it's very satisfying when your kingdom is doing that. And it's like you have open field blue balls when you're in a kingdom where you're not doing that.
I mean, there's nothing more enjoyable in this game than being on voice with a bunch of good players and having an open field fight where you're like, this is the best we can do, right? Like this, we have all of our
Yeah,
best players on here and we're all working together. And like we can feel the difference. We can feel the difference in how successful we are
yes,
at this
yeah,
moment compared to like if we had different, a different personnel on voice at that moment. Like that's
yeah,
super, super fun. Um, and I do think it's like partly leadership and partly like coaching ahead of time. I think it's largely like the talent. I think it's a lot of its player ability and stuff. Like it's not the
yeah,
easiest thing in the world to stay like at the exact front of the ball. Like you have to have like pretty reasonable march control. You have to be using a mouse and a keyboard. I don't think people who are on like a tablet can do what you're saying to do
yeah.
all that
There's
well.
there's actually
Um,
like skill set, but I really think it's just like almost like the DNA of the culture of a kingdom, right? Because there's like no one's really like everyone's saying the same thing. Don't retreat, sad face, be aggressive, like stay near the front of the ball. Like everyone's saying it. Like 1093 is not saying anything special, but some kingdoms are doing it. Some are doing it better than others, and some are like really just not good at doing it. But they're all saying the same thing, right? So like, what? How come some kingdoms are just like executing this, and some others, they'll say it, and they're not, right? Like like to me, my conclusion is that, it's like over time, there's literally like a culture, and some kingdoms just have it, and some people don't. And the way to build it is, you probably during your town halls, whatever you do, like coach, you talk about it, you call people out when they're not doing it, and then when enough people are doing it, it's very easy for a new player that joins the kingdom to just kind of like almost like figure out that's a flow of open fielding, and then they kind of buy in, and you kind of have positive momentum that way. Like it's still something you definitely, if you don't have it, you need to coach up, you need to talk about it, you need to, I don't know, enforcing is the right word, but like you need to emphasize it. But once it's there, it's almost like plug and play, right? Like if I migrated into 1093, I'm just going to be more aggressive because like I'm like, wait, the tempo I'm used to, it doesn't like I'm not staying far enough forward. Like I need to be like even more aggressive, and it's just because like you literally, if you're not really aggressive in the front, it's really hard to get KP in 1093. I was like, this is like I have to be really aggressive because anything that gets out of position melts almost like right away, and then like they're constantly just like rolling forward, and you have to like follow the group, right? So that's something. If I had one big takeaway, like piloting a bunch of different kingdoms this off season, is just like the difference in open field aggressiveness in different kingdoms. So
Yeah.
that's something where if I'm looking forward to one thing that I could help like implement is to really like, I think we're actually pretty good in 3092, better than 2268 to be honest, at like open field fighting for whatever reason.
You guys were good
And
in
I think we can
2268. You guys were good. I mean, like, there's a great Plato
Yeah.
stream when you guys are trying to burn those 1900 flags.
Yeah.
Where he's like,
No, yeah.
Well, you guys were actually very aggressive, right? You guys would go into like the middle of the ball back then, and Plato was like making these calls to like really go in hard, and he was keeping the vibes up. And at the time, I thought that was like best in class open field fighting. But it's like you're saying, it is a little bit different, where it's like actually it's just this very incremental progress by people being right at the front of the ball.
Yeah, we're actually better in 3092 than 2268. Like having played in both, we've in our peak in 68, we probably had stronger accounts, right? And there's probably individuals that were more aggressive, but as a whole, for whatever reason, like it started out that way in 3092, and if anything, it's probably gotten better. But like compared to 1093, like we can actually do more, right? And like that's kind of the emphasis, with our new recruits and whatever, like fighting. It's like, how do we hone this? Like that's now. If we take pride in anything in 3092, it's actually like how we feel right now. We do feel like we could punch like significantly above like how we look because of that, and we'll actually be one of the smaller kingdoms going into this KvK. If we don't get put into some like second tier keener blades, we get to put in the first tier. We'll be one of the smaller kingdoms, and we want to be one of the smaller kingdoms, and then see how like actually test how hard we punch. But it definitely is a thing. Like not all kingdoms open field the same, and it's a my opinion is that it's a culture thing, because I hear the same calls from a bunch of different war leads, and they're not seeing anything special, but some kingdoms are just doing it more than others.
Well, Alex makes a good point in chat. He says ball fighting strategy changes a ton depending on who you are fighting. You need to be able to adapt. I agree with that as well. Someone who is like, been war leading from an underdog open field position a lot, right?
Yeah.
Again, it was tough to tell people to be aggressive when like you're probably going to lose the fight, right? And but like for me, the whole like front of the ball thing is like a very doable thing, right? It's like even if you're losing, even if you're kind of getting pushed back a little bit, you can still be at that front of the ball. I do think there are some other factors in open field that I do want to talk to you about. One of them we can maybe access through just talking about archer marches in general, which, my experience with archer marches is that they almost always trade the worst of any of my marches.
Yeah.
But what I do see, and let me know if you are observing the same thing, what I do see is that archer marches do tend to do like the same amount of damage as the other troop types. Like that Zug march is getting a worse trade, but they're still doing as much damage as the other marches, even though they're dying faster. Are you seeing that as well? And do you think that damage is more important than a trade in open field fighting, and that therefore archer marches are actually just fine because they're maybe doing more damage per second than some of the other marches are.
So I am also noticing that ZL Herman, besides a Lucha March, on average, does the second most sub wounds out of any March for me. And that's not trading that great, right? But like archers are actually the tankiest out of the 3 troop types. Because archers, so like for example, infantry is very heavily biased towards defense, right? And then cav is health. Archers actually have the best blend of defense and health, which like from a stat standpoint, they are actually the tankiest. But they don't trade well, not because they're squishy, which is what people think. They don't trade well because everyone's targeting them.
Yeah.
So like what do you click in dot mode, right? You're gonna go click the archer. Like if there's a
I actually just click whatever march is most most appropriate for the position that I'm in all honesty.
Okay.
I mean, maybe I'll pick if I have a choice and two choices are identical in terms of positioning, then I'll pick the archer march. But anyway, that's just
which is the right answer, right? You don't want to just go out of your way. But if like there's a couple marches there, I know I do this, and I notice this when like a smaller scale ball fight too. My archers are always getting singled out. Like they're just targeting them first. Yep. So like what I noticed with ball fighting is that once you get to a certain point in tankiness, you don't gain that much more, right? Like damage is actually what matters, because if you're playing well on the field, you want to make it where, kind of like what you do, right? You target people that are out of position. So you ride the front line, but you don't actually get out of position that often. Or if you do, it's like for a very minimal amount of time you pull back. Then a lot of the damage you're taking is actually just like AoE, right? So you need enough damage where like when you're taking like indirect AoE, like you're not just going to like rock like a rock. Like you'll still be able to have some sustain on the field. But once you get above like a minimum threshold, getting more tanky doesn't actually make that big of a difference in your trades. Whereas like damage,
if you're getting focus fired, it's like you're getting focus fired, and it's just like at that point.
Yeah, if you're getting surrounded, you're just going to go down anyways.
Yeah.
Right. So like tankiness is important. Like here's where tankiness is important. Tankiness is important where you need to be above a minimum threshold, and then like the other one is like when you have a really tanky march. Like people don't want to like talk about this, but like usually in ball fighting, right? Like even if your march is, for example, in red, okay, you're not doing that much damage, right? But when you're targeting something, you could apply a debuff, right? Or there's some marches where you're actually buffing your own side, but you're also still spreading out damage, right? So like when you hit multiple targets and like you're actually spreading out the damage. And then lastly, even if you're a red march on the field, if you target a march that's out of position, right, that march is going to take 2% more damage too, because it's surrounded by, even the march that's low. So like in a ball fight, like you actually do need some sustain and tankiness. But like the first threshold you need to be above a minimum. So for example, like I would argue that Arthur Phillip is very borderline. Like that is a march that does a massive amount of damage, but is like very borderline as far as like, is it tanky enough to just have enough sustain? If it was like slightly tankier, just slightly tankier, that march would be an absolute beast. But it's very, very, very squishy. The only thing you're getting is like 10% march, 10% health, right, from Arthur. Is it 10 or 15%? I can't remember. And that's it.
You're getting 20. It's 20% health.
Oh, you're getting 20. All right. So like, but it's just like it just feels like when I have that march on the field, I'm not out of position. It seems to just drop faster than every other march I have. Right. So like everyone else is
indirect
so
damage.
right.
You're saying it's taking too much indirect damage.
Yeah, taking indirect damage, and then like it's it's kind of like the idea where if you have a march that's too fast, right? Because like if the march that connects first is the one of the ones that's going to swing all the way out and out of position, right? So if you have a march that's way too fast, you're connecting first before everyone else. That march is going to constantly be in a bad position, or you're going to have to readjust. You're actually taking away from the overall effectiveness of all your other marches if you have a huge difference in march speed. right?
Do you,
So
do you think a good march for that? Because back in the day, I used to make Attila Takeda my fastest march because I wanted that one to be the one that swung forward. Do you think Attila Philip is tanky enough to be that swing forward march?
Attila Philip, no, well, no march is tanky enough, right? Because when you
But
swing
some are
out,
better
once you're
than
out of
others,
position,
right? Like at least Attila's doing a little bit more counterattack damage on the way out. Um,
I mean, it's
I-
like relative, right? I guess it's better than if you had like a XY or something. But like any march that swings into enemy past that like line of engagement, you're just gonna get swarmed down.
and Philip is also doing his buffs when he's low health, right? He's doing his first skill
He's still
even when
doing
he's
it.
low
So like
health. So like in a way, I would say that's probably a good march for that.
I mean, I think ideally what you want is you want to make sure your archers and your inf are fast enough, and then you don't stack way too much march speed on your cabs. So there's a big difference between the different troop types. So then like it's just much easier to control, right? So like when you do make contact, let's just say with the cab first, it's not that much ahead of the other ones. So you actually have a chance to do more damage before you have to reposition. But like if you're just going to get out of position, it doesn't really matter. Like you could have the tankiest thing. It's just going to get targeted by a bunch of people, and then you know it's it's just going to go down really quick. But like in general, archers, kind of back to what you brought up, archers already do a bunch of damage. The most important thing for archers is actually march speed. So because they're already targeted, your margin for error is actually even lower with archers, right? And like so, like a march like Asher. I personally don't have Asher on my account, but I, probably like 5 or 6 different accounts have Asher. It's like one of my least favorite marches because uh, his march speed, his march speed is for whatever reason, it's 20%, but it's only when you're off territory. Right. So when you're off territory, you're supposed to get 20%. It's supposed to be good. But I don't know. I don't know why. It just doesn't seem to it just doesn't like march right for me. And like it just doesn't the best I the most the most the best combo I found for Asher is actually Asher Phillip. But I tried running Asher with like YSG, try running it with uh it's like ZL. It just doesn't work, right? Like you have to like have it with someone else with like march speed for it to work, even though Asher technically gives you like 20%. But like I've been like on Alliance territory and gotten chased down by other cabs. It's just I don't know. I'm not a big fan, but I think if you have enough march speed for Archer, um, that actually is more important than tankiness. Which if you asked me this like 3 or 4 months ago, I wouldn't have said that. But having used like Asher and then like kind of like running the numbers for tankiness, I just realized it's actually march speed. Um, and then being targeted, that's limiting archers and not so much the tankiness.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like the idea of like damage in a fight versus trade, like the idea of who wins an open field fight. Is it the team that does more damage, or is it the team that trades better? Because if you're trading better, I know that people would immediately say it's the damage, but like if you're
Yeah.
trading better, that means that you're staying out there for longer, and so like more of you are left halfway through the fight than the other team. Like you have more numbers halfway through the fight. And so like maybe at that point you lean on the other team and you win because they sort of start to see that they're outnumbered and they fall back.
Well,
But there's also,
trades
of course you
are
can refresh. I mean, of course people can
yeah.
refresh. They can do damage very quickly and then refresh. That is partly a factor. I I don't know how
So
many open field fights are really being won by one team refreshing faster than another. I mean, it doesn't feel that way to me very often, but I've just been thinking about like
so there's
it's like
a couple
what
things
wins
with
it,
that.
like it's like what wins the open field fight. Like it's almost like if you trade bad in an open field fight but you win the fight, like that's great, that's fine. Your team won the fight, like you're really happy, like you cleared the field, everyone feels good. the other team feels shitty. Like, yeah, some people might be looking at their reports either immediately or later on, but like, as much as people do look at reports, I feel like what we really look at is we look at like who held the field at the end of this thing. And if we hold it, we feel good. If they hold it, we feel bad. And so that's the argument for damage, right? That's the argument. It's like just do damage, and get the enemy off the field. Like, who cares what the stats are?
I mean, so at the end of the day, it would be damage, right? Because like one, trades don't reflect a couple things. You know, you could be trading like 800 to 100 or like 8,000 to 1,000. Your trade's the same. So like, usually when people are talking about trades, they're talking about like ratio. Um, and then two, there's like, how did you get those trades? Did you get those trades at the expense of your teammates? Right. Like, so, and that's actually kind of that's kind of like probably what happens in a lot of these kingdoms. Like, in my opinion, that's not good at open fielding, is when everyone's playing for trades, then everyone actually ends up trading worse overall because everyone's trying to hide behind someone else to get better trades. So if everyone is playing the way they're supposed to, right, and not trying to play for trades, then what I noticed too is like there's a lot of times I feel like when you're fighting in the ball, like it might not actually the stalemate might not have broken uh, because something physical happened. It might have broken because like psychologically one side just decided like it's time to retreat, and as like people start retreating, then more people retreat, and then like that stalemate's broken. You know, like it was it actually already over, like that ball fight where one side won, or did one or two people retreat, then more people followed, and like did it break that way? You know, like I've always actually thought that. I don't know, but it feels like sometimes when a side loses, they didn't actually lose. They lost psychologically, and then the momentum just like really swung once you had a few people start running.
Yeah, and well, and then they lose because then it gets real bad, right? I
Yeah,
think
because
I think
when half your
really
ball
that's
ran,
what
then
happens,
you're
right?
screwed. Yeah,
Is
yeah,
like it's even, like it's a pretty even fight, and then just one
yeah,
team decides to retreat, and if everyone retreated, that would be actually pretty okay because you'd basically trade evenly, and then you just do it again in a few minutes. But what happens is like half the people retreat, and then the half that stays, who in
yeah.
many
Then they get
ways are
screwed.
playing pretty
Yeah,
well. Like if there's
yeah,
not a retreat call, but half your teammates retreat, then you're actually doing the right thing by staying because you can't have your finger on the retreat button just like ready to do it immediately, right? So they're doing the right thing, but then they're just getting hardcore punished, and then the team is losing the fight really badly.
yeah.
A wrinkle in this, and this is more so in the bigger kingdoms, but I would imagine you're going to experience this at your level too, is the existence now of ranged marches and how strong ranged marches are now, and how many
Yeah.
are in the field for some of these very strong kingdoms. In those situations, like there is merit to like doing a full on retreat even in a stalemate, just to like get away from that ranged, right? Just to get away from the ranged, bring the enemy into you a little bit, because they're probably going to chase you. If you do a full retreat, they're probably going to chase you. We saw 960 do this a few times. I saw them like retreat, and then like halfway through the retreat they did this obvious coordinated turnaround, and they just turned right back
Yeah.
on the enemy. If you're doing that well, look at what you're accomplishing. You're stretching the enemy out of position, and
Yeah.
you're getting out of range of that siege, right? So like it's a pretty nice move to do. Um, but
Yeah.
you're playing into the hands of all the people on your team that are just waiting to hit that retreat button when you do call that stuff. But it's pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
There's some ideas I have for how to better use range with field, but I've never been in a kingdom where we're very heavy range to be able to mess around with some of this. So like for now, it would be like theory crafting. I think we ever get to a point where we have a lot more siege. There's some stuff I would like to try that I haven't seen anyone else do yet that I think could be a better use of siege to mix to supplement open fielding.
What do you think about siege at this point?
Uh, I think if I was going to make a change, Siege should not be able to beat another March 1v1. You know,
Yeah,
they
in
should be able to
Canyon.
do. They
Yeah,
should,
Siege should not be so good in Canyon.
yeah, like
Yeah.
that's just like there's just like one. There's just something fundamentally wrong with that. But like that's that scene. This was at this point. This is over a year ago. But seeing like Mr. Siege post a report where like it wasn't even a Gajamada Cordoba. It was like a Bobber's Margaret outdueling a Gorgo Luce at the time. Because like up to that point, I'm like, oh, Siege, whatever, right? Like, you know, once you get up in their face, it's over. But then once I saw that, that's when I had the first inclination, like, you know, if you're gonna run 7 marches, I feel like Siege should definitely be included in that. And that was before anyone was really mixing the two. Um, I feel like if I was gonna make changes to Siege, like one, you you could probably only have one siege march per player. So now you can't roll that many out there, and then they have to be very weak in melee range, right? So it's something where it's something where okay, at range, fine, you have a advantage, but if people actually get close to you, it should take longer to like dismantle it, and then you just get taken down. I feel like that would actually balance it a little bit better. But you know, right now, the way Siege is, I'm not a big fan. I wasn't ever a big fan. It was just obvious
You
where
just
this
noticed. You
game was
noticed
going.
before other
It
people
was
that
just
it was
it.
strong.
It was just obvious where this game was going to go. Like, if you didn't do it, then you know, like you're kind of missing out, and the people that take advantage of that will kind of benefit. But I think a nerf is coming. As
You
because
think
they're
they'll nerf?
making.
I don't think they're gonna nerf. I mean, they don't really nerf commanders. Like that's the thing. They don't really nerf
I think they'll
commanders.
nerf. I think they'll nerf the mechanic, right? So if they make it harder to take down, and then they make it where it's not as strong a melee range, I feel like that would be a better balance.
I would love
Like
for
I,
them to
like
nerf it.
like it's yeah, it adds a different element, which is good,
yes,
but
that's good.
it shouldn't be. I feel like it's kind of like the result you get right now is like basically what you have right now is a result of them essentially wanting to make Siege appealing enough for people to invest in it. Right? Because Siege was out for a while and nobody wanted to
The
touch it.
first two were not that good, right? Like
Yeah.
the Bobbers and Margaret were not that good, so they were like, well, okay, we have to make it stronger so that people will use
Yeah.
it. But then they made two commanders
Yeah.
that were stronger.
Yeah.
And they
Well,
just
no, well, funny
overtuned
enough,
it.
actually.
Like they're so careful about so
Yeah.
many things.
Yeah.
They're so incremental about all the changes they make.
Yeah.
And then with Siege, they just like went all in on the second generation.
Yeah, but that's the
just
thing.
like crazy.
Margaret and Bob are actually already good, and people still didn't invest in them. That's why they actually had to release even better command. Like they were already good, and just nobody was using them.
Yeah,
except for like J Towers, and then eventually like Mr. Siege, right? But like it's, I feel like it does add some. I'll put it this way: it's fun when you have a siege and other people don't, but when everyone has it, it's not as fun.
yeah.
When you're like one of the few and you had it, and then you just go piss people, you could do like some like funny because people get really pissed about it. But at this point, enough people have it, especially in like the bigger KvKs, where I feel like they could just nerf it a little bit because it's actually not that easy to use. There's a lot of scenarios where siege is almost like unusable, right? Like if you're on enemy territory, you can't use it. If the ball's moving too fast, you can't use it. So it's already very situational. But it just in no world should siege be able to outduel a field march 1v1. Like that doesn't even make sense. Like you know, we were just like thinking about how like some of this stuff's supposed to work in real life. So yeah.
I mean, Boba says their solution is to just release new commanders. I think that's what they're going to do. I would love to see them nerf Siege. I mean, I agree that it needs. It's just too strong. But what I expect them to do is that they're just going to release, new commanders of other troop types that are just progressively stronger, to where the siege is eventually just not as good as it is now. I mean, that ultimately does cause other problems, though, because if they're having to accelerate the power creep of the other troop types to compensate for overpowered siege, then it makes all the old commanders not as usable. It sort of forces
Yeah, no,
it rewards whales because they get all the new commanders faster. So that's not a good solution either. It shows, in some ways, it's a good example of like how well taken care of this game has largely been, because they're really
yeah,
careful about a lot of stuff. The game's been balanced for a long time, but like look at what happens when you make one mistake, then there's these like potentially cascading effects in trying to fix that. I mean, I think it's good that Siege. Look, I like that they tried something different. You know, we've been talking about open field fighting in depth in this stream, and there are like these nuanced, like skill based things you can do with open field. My issue with the game right now is that I just feel like there's not a ton of skill expression in the game. As a leader,
yeah,
you can certainly do a lot of skill expression. You can do the things in the open field that we're talking about where you like retreat 1 centimeter instead of 4 centimeters. But like that's not a ton. It's not a ton of stuff for like a competitive game where that's like the skill of the game for most players.
yeah,
And you know, there's things they could do to go back that would make things more skillful. Like maybe like I'm curious what you think about all these things I'm talking about. Maybe they go back and make like garrisons stronger, make more anti-swarm garrisons like CY and Gorgo, to where like you have the ability to punish a mob of swarmers a little bit more if you have a really good garrison commander and you have like really sharp reinforcements near that flag. Maybe you punish the swarmers enough to where like either they have to swarm very well by using like the right marches and breaking off in time, or like they just get a bad trade, like make the swarmers have to step up a little bit. Maybe that's one way to make the game a little more complex and interesting. Maybe it's something like Siege, but like that's not the same. Maybe it's some mechanics within the KvK. I know Keener Blades has some stuff that like shifting gears has like a bunch of different things you can do. I mean, to me the game is a little bit it's just a little meh at the moment because it's all mob. It's like form a mob in the field, and if your
yeah,
mob is stronger than the other team's mob, then you win. You know, and
yeah.
that
So
makes it
basically,
a big time recruitment
something
game,
with
right? At that point, recruiting
yeah.
is like almost the most important thing in the game. I'm curious if you think that recruiting is like the most important skill a kingdom can have in the game or not. It sort of feels like it is to me, because you just like have to build the best army you possibly can, and at that point the army does a lot of the work for you. So I like where they went with Siege, like trying to
Yeah.
add more elements, but it's just like not a great element.
Yeah, so I've never played Call of Dragons. From when I like seen and like heard, there's a little bit more of a like a strategic component of like how you have the different types of
Active
troops
skills and like active skills
work
that you can
together. Like
use.
you actually have like tanks that are supposed to be in the front,
Yeah,
and you have like
yeah.
flying like range in the back, like things like that, right? Like this game itself, I don't mind the open fielding. I mean, obviously, it's just like going back and forth on the ball. I feel like there's a lot of like different strategies. So, like for example, uh, one of the things that I feel like kingdoms don't do a good job of is they actually a lot of times wait too long to give up a territory that they just shouldn't have built. Right. So like having that flag there and then like having it in a way where like you're trying to defend, like you're literally taking really really bad trades because you're just at a disadvantage in the way that flag was built. Like if you actually gave it up, uh you would have like wore down your side a lot less, right? So there's a lot of like strategy, more like that, like leadership or war leading, like choosing where to like fight and how to build, and then like when to give up certain territory to actually set yourself up better, right? Like going into say like downtime or something, or not extending too far Like when we fought you guys, one of the things we did was we extended way too far, going into a downtime in a giant ass Kingsland with one alliance. Like so then you just couldn't defend anything, and then like people woke up to things burning everywhere, right? Whereas like okay, like I know we have momentum here, we're going to downtime. We're not going to be able to hold this, and then now we're cooked on like crystals or the flag counts we have. Like there's like those kind of
That's
things.
something for sure, right? Like preserving some
Yeah,
crystals.
yeah, right. And like so, someone like Adi, right, is like we're very good at that, right? He'll actually make that call. So like, okay, there's the open fielding part, but like whoever was doing like the territory or like war planning, maybe didn't think that through or didn't do a good job of that. And like it looked like you have the momentum now, but you actually like set yourself up to lose a lot more territory. Like right, so like there's like the strategy part I really like, and then the open fielding is more like okay, you still need to like support that, right? Um, but the actual open fielding, I'm not sure how much Lilith can do to change rock
That's
open
what's
fielding at
tough.
this point.
That's the tough thing, right? It's like a
You
pretty
know?
good game right now,
Yeah, like if anything, like I don't even know how they could do this, right? Is there a way to make ball fighting take a little bit more skill? Right? Like, is there like maybe a way to make it more challenging, but not an attacky way where like it just pisses people off? It's more like when you actually, right? Like, is there a way to make this harder to control, but that requires more skill, not just because it's shitty controls? I don't know.
I, it doesn't
Right?
have to be the open field, but like I think
Yeah.
the way to think about this is like that you and I have both now gone a year where we knew
Yeah.
who was going to win every KvK before it happened. So it's like there needs to be somehow there needs to be more agency for teams who have less power and or less KP or who spend less. There has to be some sort of agency for them to be able to beat the stronger side, right? You just don't see upsets hardly ever. You don't see outplays hardly ever. I mean,
Yeah.
I predicted like all the big KvKs correctly recently. Like I predicted that 3308 was going to beat 1079. I predicted that 960 was going to beat 2377.
Yeah.
Everybody knew that 2489 was going to beat 1875. I might have gotten like, I mean, if you had asked me at the time, would 1981 and 1568 beat 1606? I might have picked that one incorrectly. But other than that, I mean,
No, that,
I nailed everything, right? So like, there just
yeah.
has to be, and it could be anything, right? It could be like, I don't even know exactly what Keener Blades is like, and maybe you can describe some of the mechanics there, but it could be like on the Lost Kingdom level where like you strategize certain things and that gives you an advantage. I mean, stuff like the burrs and all that stuff in Britain, artifacts, those are all good things. Those are all good things that add more strategy and more skill to the game. The only issue with those things is that it's all pressure on the leadership, really. Like it's if whatever mechanics Keener
Yeah.
Blades has, I assume it's like the leadership has to make some decisions and the leadership has to coach their players. But I could be wrong.
And
Maybe it's not that.
well, to be honest, it might not have to actually be game mechanics, right? It could actually just come down to doing a better job of matchmaking kingdoms.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what if the water camp in your KvK was like 15% stronger, right? Now going to that KvK, who's going to win? It's pretty close to 50-50. Like you're less confident. All of a sudden, it's really fun,
Well, they
right?
could have put one of the strong kingdoms in our camp into Wind
Yeah.
Camp,
What?
made Wind Camp
What?
stronger, given us one of the weak Wind Camp.
Yeah, exactly. I
You
can't
know.
tell you like because you're like in like how people do Diplo, right? Like you're the developer of the game. You know what people look at, right? Like if you know what they're going to look at, then rearrange the kingdoms in a way where the shit they look at, like you can actually do Diplo in like 3 different ways, and like maybe there's one that's slightly better than the other, but all 3 ways, like with 4 camps, will actually end up being like a pretty like like close to like under 60% advantage, right? Like
Yeah.
going in, like
Yep.
you're not more than 60% confident. That guess what? That'll make the game a lot more fun, right? But instead, how often is it where there's 4 camps or 6 camps, and there's just one freaking camp that for whatever reason it's just like the outlier, like the dark sheep that nobody wants because they're just clearly the weakest one out of the 4, out of the 6. Like why the hell would you have 5 camps where like, okay, we can make this work, and you just have one that nobody wants, right? Like, like do they have a person?
Is that Lilith's fault or is that our fault though? You know
That's
what I mean?
Lilith's fault.
Well, but part of it is our fault though, because we could make more fair KvKs than we do, right?
But that's what I'm saying though. Like, look at your KvK, right? Nobody wanted the bottom right camp.
You know,
if they take out one weaker looking kingdom and added a stronger looking kingdom there, where the wind camp and the water camp is like really, really even, and like, okay, maybe this one is slightly higher in KP, this one, all of a sudden, like people can't even do shady shit because like the camps are pretty even, right? And like if we know what all the kingdoms are looking at, right, to do Diplo, you can't tell me Lilith doesn't know. So why are they doing that?
They're not going to look at it, dude. It's hard to look so closely and be like, oh, the R5 of this one kingdom has like the most insane arc record ever. You
don't even need to go that.
They're probably like better than we think. They're better than they are on paper, you know.
Oh no, for sure, right? But on paper, people should feel like it's 50-50 going in, right?
Now then, ours is like relatively fair. On paper, paper it's relatively fair. But like one kingdom's dead. You know, there's a dead big kingdom.
On paper, what's your confidence going in?
Oh, we're like 90% or above.
if it was
that's not on paper. That's like reading. That's reading in between the lines. That's reading in between the lines. You know.
Okay, but what if it was just on paper, like, and not the?
Oh, if it was just on paper, just the stats, just pulling up the stats and being like, what are our odds of winning? Yeah. And so I don't even know that like 1900 punches above their weight, and I don't know that like anything about it. Oh, at that point, I think we're like 60. We can only be, if I know nothing about any of the kingdoms, then at that point we can only be 60% because you don't know where the distribution is of like the highly effective war leads and the highly effective kingdoms. Like it could be anywhere.
Can you show the other one? Show the other one where I had them all combined.
Oh, the other stats. Yeah. Yeah, this one. I mean, on paper, they're the favorites. Yeah. If you think 28 billion power is important, which it's debatable how important 28 billion power is. Like it's really hard to. I don't really know. Yeah. You know, troop power. How is power and troop power so different on these? I don't even know.
Well, the troop power is the one that matters, right? Because the other power could be like whatever. So right or wrong, people value KP more.
Yeah.
If it was just straight up on just looking at these 4 numbers right now, and you ask people to pick which side is going to have an advantage, I think you'll probably get like close to 70% of the people or more that says your side has the advantage. Right. So if I'm Lilith and I know this, right? I'm just going to make it where the KPs are pretty close. Okay, the KPs are pretty close, and then I'll let them figure out how they want to do Diplo. But like going in, looking at it on paper, no one feels like they're above 60%. And you know what? Like that would actually make KvK as a whole a lot more fun, right? Because at some point you're going to have to find out, and some kingdoms are way better constructed than others, right? You're going to find out. But like going in, the stats are going to look pretty similar, right? People are way more willing to buy tech, right? 3379 is not going to threaten to sit out. 3479, whatever kingdom that is, right? Because they feel like at least the stats on paper, there's a chance, and then you go duke it out and you find out. And none of that has to do with game mechanics. That's just like the kingdoms you're placing into a KvK, where like the different scenarios that you could do Diplo, none of them could be too quote unquote one-sided according to anybody. So they're like willing to go and like fight and find out. Right. Like if you're going to put 6 camps or 4 camps on a map, like it's not that hard to make it where like the camps are all, you can make a case where like they're all pretty similar. Like I don't even know why you have to make it where there's clearly two stronger camps and then clearly two weaker camps.
Well, part of it's the language thing, right? They're very focused on putting similar language kingdoms together, right? Like it's no coincidence that we're in a camp with 1900 because we're sort of like considered a Korean kingdom, even though we only have like 15 Korean players at this point, and 1900 is a Korean kingdom. But your point is well taken, though. That's like they've built this very good game. Like they've really put a lot of care into making a very good game. Yeah. They're making a lot of money at this game, and really the low hanging fruit is
it's just better matchmaking.
Like very it's annoying for them. Like listen, spending a ton of time doing matchmaking, like literally like hiring someone to be like the full-time matchmaking person, where like they know these kingdoms very, very well, and like they watch YouTubers to like get the qualitative info about these kingdoms and stuff. Like, that would be an annoying thing for Lilith to do, but like honestly, they would get the best bang for their buck if they actually did do that. Where like the matchmaking was like literally the best, the smartest thing about the game. Like the most time and intelligence was put into the matchmaking. Like they just went completely overboard in how much time they put into the matchmaking. They actually would get the best bang for their buck for that.
I mean, here's just like spitballing, right? Like I don't even know if like I have to think this out, right? They can even do a thing where there's literally like different leagues, right? So like you know how that right now that like A, B, C, like D seed, all that stuff. You could do different leagues, and then like a kingdom has like a ranking based on how they perform, right? And if a kingdom sits out, if a kingdom tanks or whatever, there's some kind of penalty. Like there's a bunch of different ways you could do this to like maximally like punish kingdoms for essentially ruining KvKs or refusing to fight, or like if for whatever reason like get into a KvK refuse to fight, then like you know they get punished for it. So like they're incentivized, and then like kingdoms can actually like have like a ranking, and you know you can be incentivized to try to move your kingdom's ranking up. There's like a bunch of different ways they could go about this. But like one of the worst ways they could do is like have these really, really long off seasons, right? So you get at most 4 KvKs a year. And then the potential for a bust of a KvK to be so high. Right? Like you put all this effort into all this stuff, and like the bust rate for a KvK should be really low. You know, like at the very least, like in the Diplo stage. Like no kingdom should come out of Diplo and just be like so like upset with because of how one-sided or how lopsided the matchmaking is, just decide to sit out. Like it's not that hard to prevent that. Like you know the numbers they look at, just make the numbers they look at kind of even.
It's fairly hard. It's fairly hard because the incentives is just so. This is like something that's going on in like with like the trade wars and stuff right now, where like there's this concept of like, are we playing a cooperation game or a competition game? And like if you're playing a cooperation game, you think that like everyone can win, and like the way people win the most is by all sides cooperating. Whereas like a competition game believes that essentially if one side cooperates and the other side defects, then the side that defects is going to get all the advantage. And then maybe if both sides defect, there might be like some degree of like winning for both sides. And right, like I think like it would be great if we played a cooperation game. Like it would be great if we all went into diplomacy and we're like, okay, let's do what's best for like everyone in this group. Let's do what's best for the game as a whole. But I think that what happens most of the time is we go into it with a competition game mentality where we're like, okay, let's put this in our favor. We don't want to put it a lot in our favor. There's like this, we want to be like 67% likely to win. That would be perfect, right. You know. But if like, we can't be 67%, then we sure as hell aren't going to be 50. We're going to be 87. You know, we're going to be 85 or something. You know, and so it's hard in that sense, right? Because it's like even if they make it, I know what you're saying. You're saying make it like you're saying do it in a game theory optimal way where it's unexploitable. You cannot exploit the situation.
No. You could for sure exploit it, but what I'm saying is, let's just take your KvK for example, right? You guys are at 2 trill. Fire Camp is at 1.9. right? And then I keep getting wind and water mixed up. Whoever's a stronger one
Water's at 1.6.
Has about 400 bill more KP than the other camp, right?
Yeah.
You're telling me I just made one chain. I made it where two other camps, their KP is within 100 bill of each other. You would have like less issues when it comes to Diplo, right? Like if fire got wind or water, they'll be like, you know what? They're pretty close. They'll be okay, right? But when there's like a 400 bill KP difference, then there's one that everyone wants, and then there's one that everyone doesn't want, right? Now, I mean, you could like literally, like, if you want to be even more lazy, you could just switch two of the kingdoms. You switch a stronger kingdom and water and move them over to
you could have put 2563. Listen, in this one, you probably could have put 2563, which is well organized, into wind.
Yeah.
And you could put like either 1544 or 2081 in the other camp. And they would probably be like very equal camps at that point. Because they did make like fire and earth like pretty even. Like they made us pretty even, these top two camps,
I agree.
You know?
Yeah. So like this one, right? Why like did a human being not look at this? Because you know exactly what everyone's gonna look at. Right. So why couldn't you make that one change here? And then okay, fine. It could turn out, you know what? The camps were actually really one-sided. Like water camp was just way stronger than wind. But at least based on KP and the initial reaction and what people look at, it was closer. And there's not a controversy when everyone's trying to ally water and then avoid wind. Right. But like, I mean, you can even like have ChatGPT do this. But like, okay, once we're done with placing these on the map, can you just make it where the KP and the power is relatively even? You know? Like, but
they could hire they could hire me to do this, right? Like they could give me a full-time job, and I would just do this, and I would be like, this is the best job I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And
just
and they would get like they would make so much money for it. They would get so much bang for their buck, right?
Yeah, but how many freaking KvKs where it's like this, where there's just one camp that nobody wants because they're just clearly like way weaker than like the other camps, and like you could have just switched one kingdom with another kingdom on the same freaking map. You didn't even have to bring in a kingdom outside of this map. You could have done it with the same 16 kingdoms on the map, right? And then all of a sudden, at least going into KvK, all camps would feel a little bit different about their matchup. We're like, okay, what's closer? We'll find out what happened, right? Now, if you have a kingdom that's like in a recovery, or they just had a king that just retired, and whatever, you find out that kind of intel, like fine, right? That's real life, like out of your control, Lilith. But the stuff they can control, the most basic thing they can control, they're fucking it up, like way more than they should.
A bit more than they should. Like, I mean, Amthal's in the chat, and Amthal earlier said, what did they say? They said essentially that Lilith doesn't get enough credit for doing an okay job of it, is I think Amthal's general point. And I sort of agree with that. Like, I sort of agree. I feel like, you know, and I think they've gotten a little bit better at it. I mean, maybe Big Kane would argue with me because his last one was kind of a mess. But, you know, like the 1961 was very good. They gave everybody what they wanted there.
The 1961 was
good. There's been some good ones. Like ours last year was good. You know,
like the one. Well, you know, Lambo was in here earlier. Like, why is 1316 on that map? It just makes no sense. Like, right? Like they couldn't even. Well, I think they ended up actually allying.
I'm not sure what happened there, but yeah.
But like they're just like, well, there's one camp that's way stronger than all the other camps. Right? If we're doing 3v1, it's not fair for the strong camp. But we try to do 2 and 2v2 in any way. You just can't get it matched up where people actually feel like it's even semi-fair going into the matchup. Like so that's a terrible job, right? Like you could give them credit when they do a good job, but
right.
like,
yeah.
What we're discussing here is something that a 10-year-old could do. Here's this number. Make the number within 10% of the other number, and then people will actually go in feeling like, okay, every camp could potentially be allies. Not this like backdoor stuff where like everyone, let's try to ally win and avoid water because water is clearly like the shitty camp, right? Like, like that's that's pretty easy to do.
Well, I didn't
Right. And
understand
then
why 2489's camp was so strong in the 1875 KvK. They had 1824 and I forget the other kingdom, but it was like another good kingdom. Like 2489 had, two extremely strong campmates, and then 1875 had like nothing,
yeah.
And
So
it was just weird.
2049 had 80 players they brought in.
Right. That was the end of the domain system, I probably,
Usually that would screw them. Like I don't think the right play is to be super high KP and then go into KvK with 80 players. Like if it wasn't 18, if they weren't in a camp of 3 with 1875, it was way more likely they were going to end up like at a huge number disadvantage with 80 players fighting other people. Like Lilith kind of gifted them that, right? But like I don't think that's a winning formula. If you want to, if you think like having 80 players and then you're counting on going into a KvK essentially where you get multiple campmates, finding a kingdom like bigger than you, like if you had a lower KP, fine, but 2489's KP was very high, right? Like if they didn't match them with 1875, what other map could they get on, right? Because all the other kingdoms, big kingdoms, were like in one KvK together, where people were going to look at KP and be like, oh yeah, like 2489 deserves all these strong allies. They were literally going to get shafted with 80 main players in a KvK, but Lilith gave them the sacrificial lamb, that's 1875, and they gave them multiple campmates. So I think they kind of got, it's a little shady, right? Because 1093 also got the 2489 treatment when they got 89 GT. Like those are, I don't know. The Lilith gods are looking like
Listen.
or something.
I just want to say, if anybody from Lilith is watching, I appreciate all the strong campmates that 770 has gotten recently. I have no problem with it at all. I think I think you've done a good thing. You've kept an important kingdom in this game going strong. We appreciate the help. We're making the most of it. We're trying to rebuild the kingdom and make it a very long running thing. So listen,
Yeah.
I get that I don't even know how any of this happens, but as someone who has maybe gotten some favorable campmates lately, it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice. So
yeah.
But we've talked about this for a while, and the pod has been going for a while. I do want to get your thoughts on a couple of quick issues.
Yeah.
One is because you've done a lot of stuff with armaments lately. You've done a lot of live streams with armaments. You're helping out other people with armaments. We talk about skill expression in the game, and I think the theory crafting and execution around armaments is I like armaments a lot. They do take skill, right? They do take skill and practice. What do you think about destructive? Because there has been some videos recently saying that destructive is literally bad. It's a negative because of the rage reduction. Maybe if you're getting swarmed by a ton of people, it might have slight value. I think when Bile GT made the video, he said it would take 20 people swarming you to get value on destructive. What I've heard from others is that if you're just getting swarmed by a moderate amount of people, destructive has value. What are your thoughts, Bus?
So I think the best inscription in that slot, so the scroll slot for Arch is still going to be destructive. Right. So there's two parts, right? So the first part is just 3.5% boost to normal damage. That's just really good, right? You're not going to get anything else in that slot that comes close. Right? Like there's just nothing. There's nothing that's as good as a 3.5% boost to normal damage.
Though to be fair, in the emblem slot below it, you can get 4% damage on the rare inscription, not the special inscription.
Right, but that's an emblem slot. And then you're
right, but scroll is generally considered like the easier slot to get something than emblem.
Right, but what I'm saying is you're competing, you're talking about a different slot and you're competing with Fearless, which is 8%. Right. So I'm just talking about in the scroll slot.
Well,
it's just in general. In general,
look at
right?
what I'm
Like
comparing
fearless,
now. Look what I'm comparing
right?
now, right? What I'm using versus what I used to use, which was destructive. But then I watched
Yeah,
Biles' video and I was like, all right, destructive sucks. I'm going to use this
yeah,
double inscription instead.
yeah, yeah. So click on so for example, right? Okay,
This
like
gives
how much
2.5% counterattack and 3.5% attack.
right? So how much how much is let's say how do I want to word this? How much is how much is 2.5% counterattack and then 3.5% attack worth when it comes to damage relative to the 3.5% boost in normal damage? Right. Here's like here's a question
But
I always
he's
have for
say,
people
I
that
mean,
are like,
I there's no doubt that 3.5% boost is good, but that second
right,
half
so,
of it, you know,
right, we're just talking about the first part, right? So the
yeah.
second part then is okay.
But okay, so but
Uh,
let's say the first part because you asked a good question. Because like when I'm looking
yeah,
at these two double inscriptions in particular on an Attila, I mean
yeah.
2.5% counterattack, that's got to be more. I mean, how much counterattack damage is 3.5% normal attack giving?
Well,
I'm
you
gonna
get three
flip
point.
this back on you.
So well, it depends on the commander, right? Because it's a boost. So if you are on Attila, if you put it on Attila, who already has a bunch of normal attack damage increase, this literally is going to multiply that by 103.5%. Right. And if you
It's gonna
have
boot.
like a
Okay, yeah. Right.
yeah, so that's
Yeah,
multiplicative. Whereas like if you have like
yeah.
retaliatory, right? Okay, you're going to add.
You're
So like
adding
for
that to
example,
what essentially adding that to what destructive is multiplying. You know,
yeah.
you're
So
adding
like
that to the stat cluster, the stat bucket. You're adding this 2.5% counter. No. This is separate, right? This counterattack damage
so
is separate, right?
no, well, counterattack is normal damage, right? There's basic attack and counterattack.
But this is in a different bucket because it's an inscription. It's in a different bucket than the rest of his counterattack damage.
So the bucket you're actually talking about is the difference between additive and multiplicative, right? So like retaliatory is additive. Like skill damage increase is additive. So like if you have a 10% skill damage increase here and a 20% skill damage increase somewhere else, it's going to be 30% total, right? Whereas if you have a boost, a 10% boost and then a 20% increase, you're going to take that 20% increase, you're going to multiply that by 1.1 or 110%. And that's actually how you get the number. So something like destructive or a boost, the higher your normal damage increase is already, the higher your attack is already, actually the more value you're getting out of it.
Hmm.
Like basically the higher the number, the more value it is. Right. So there's just nothing in that slot that gives you a 3.5% normal damage boost to begin with. Right. So that's the first part. Now the second part is the part where people really have a problem because they see that you're going to lose 100 rage, right? And then they start like, oh, it's terrible, it's terrible. My question for that is like, how do you like, and you know, there's no right answer, right? But how do you actually value rage, right? Because the rage essentially is time,
You
right?
know
So
what Baya was saying was that like you're losing a turn, like across maybe like 15 turns and two skill cycles. It's going to take you one additional turn to get to like one of
okay,
those skills.
right,
You
right.
know,
So yeah, perfect. So that's a component of time, right? So rage is a component of time. So when you're trying to compare time with damage, right, you have to actually have a way to organize your thoughts to be compared the two. And if you can't do that, then like I can't take whatever someone says seriously because you don't even know how to value two different domains and then make the comparison between the two. Right. So you're just like, oh well, you're gonna lose a turn. Well, how much damage is a turn worth to you and why? Right. So I literally made 2 videos on this now. So
in
I
the
have
open
my like
field, it's pretty important. In a rally or a garrison, I would kind of feel like it's maybe a little bit less important because like
okay. So
in the
here
open field, you want to get
yeah,
that skill off faster, right? You know.
Right. So then the next question is, if you get the skill off a second faster, how much is that worth? Right. Because like right now, and I could tell you, you correct me if I'm wrong, the way people talk about this, they want to they want to simplify it, right? Whoever gets the active skill off faster has a massive advantage, right? Because if you get the skill off faster, you're going to reduce their troop count. When you reduce their troop count, which it's tied to a damage, they're going to do less damage. So they're already going to be behind. And then as you do it over the skill cycles more and more, almost like we're dueling or doing a rally garrison or something, you're going to stack that advantage and get a bigger and bigger advantage. Right. Now, something I always talk about is opportunity cost. If you're choosing, for example, to take a horn, so you're getting, 150 rage on average over 10 turns or whatever, right? What are you choosing that in lieu of, right? So if you're choosing a horn over a Ring of Doom, right, that's an opportunity cost. So it's not just that, oh, I chose the horn. It's good. Okay, if you choose something, what are you giving up to choose that thing? And like my biggest problem with the people that argue against it, I don't have a problem with people that argue against it. It's that they talk about it like, oh, well, the horn's is good, right? But like if you're choosing the horn, what are you not getting to choose? And then like how do you value damage versus rage, which is essentially a component of time, or like you being able to fire your active skill one turn faster, right, over like 20 turns or something like that, right? Until you could actually like organize all of those things and then be like, okay, I feel like being able to fire an active skill a second faster is worth about 6% damage. And this is why. I can't take what you say seriously, not you necessarily, because like you're not even comparing two things. You're just saying, oh, well, this is bad because you're losing a second here.
Well,
okay, but what is this?
You're saying people who are against destructive are saying it's bad because it trades worse in a duel situation. With like no swarming, no reinforcements, like just a open field duel, which is not like something that really happens in the game. But I mean, that's a valid data point, or that's a valid sample, I would say.
But how are they actually proving that?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what BioGT did. I think he used the battle simulator. I think he ran it in the battle simulator.
Yeah, but even if you use the battle simulator, there's nothing in the battle simulator where you're able to like separate out like the different parts of destructive. Right. So like, for example, if you had two inscriptions and they both get a 3.5% boost, one has the second part and one doesn't. And then you run that over like a lot of times, right? For one, you're simulating a duel, which is different from the open field. But at least you could be like, okay, look, you could see 10% chance to spend 100 rage and increase the damage by 70% is just worse than without it. Right. But right now, they're going to have to either do destructive versus fit or destructive versus battle ready.
Or pulverizer. I think pulverizer is popular.
Right. Or pulverize. Yeah. And then like,
or
it's
a nice
like, okay,
double inscription like I've got.
Right. So then they're taking this thing that is essentially simulating a duel or rally garrison and then trying to tell me, okay, this is going to be worse for the open field, which is, it's not the open field, right? Because the open field is actually very different than dueling or rally garrison. So like, again, I'm not necessarily even like saying, oh, it's for sure better, right? I'm just saying like the testing that people want to like show with the argument they make, they're always missing a couple things. One, it's either dueling, rally garrison, right, where they're showing that. Two, there's no comparison of something that's time oriented, rage, versus damage oriented, right? Until you can actually like make a comparison, we're like, okay, losing 1 second on your active skill, I think is about 6%, losing about 6% damage. And here's the math, and this is why. Like, if you're not showing those things, then you're just taking one small part of like a theory crafting, and then just like extrapolating it out, and just say, no, this is true. But like, why is it worse? Like why is it not as good as 5% damage? Right?
Well,
like why would you rather fire 1 second faster than 5%?
The argument Bio made was that this is literally like not good. It's like it's worse than no inscription, like so. Which is probably
Right,
why
but
I replied to him, because I was like, that's hard to
which
stomach,
is which is why like it's crazy to me, because okay, you could say that, but destructive is literally 2 parts. So how are you actually testing this without the first part, the 3.5% boost of normal damage? There's no way in the game right now, unless you're just trying to do math, to actually like separate out the first part of destructive and the second part of destructive, which kind of ties me back to the first point. There's nothing in this slot where there's a 3.5% boost to normal damage, right? And really, the better the commander, the more the further along your equipment and everything is, the more that boost actually benefits your march. So even march to march is going to be different.
I can tell you roughly how much normal attack Attila has, because I rallied with this combo in Osiris last week. And I was actually surprised that it's kind of low. Like, the amount of normal attack damage is hard to get. It is actually hard to get. Why am I... Oh, maybe I didn't... you know what? I probably didn't... I might have under a battle. Yeah,
now, having said all this, I've
got a couple here. I've got a couple here.
Okay.
Yeah, normal attack damage in Arc, I had... This is without destructive. I had 12.5% normal damage on Attila Subutai. And that increases a little bit as time goes on, because I've got like uplifting. Because this was the other armament I wanted to ask you about, was uplifting. And like, is it like better than a lot of rares? Because uplifting after 50 seconds gives you 5% normal damage.
For rally, garrison, and duels, it is better than most rares. Uplifting.
Yeah. What about like forceful, which is 4%? Forceful is like a very clean rare inscription in the emblem slot. It gives you just a flat 4%.
It's really good.
Uplifting gives you 5% after 50 seconds. Would you say they're like equal? Would you say forceful is just like a tiny bit better than uplifting?
Forceful is better because forceful is giving you a boost
right away. Yeah.
Right.
But uplifting's like crazy good, right? For a common inscription, uplifting on a rally is like crazy.
It's really good, right? So like if you're gonna do a boost, let me think. I'm trying to freaking do math on stream real quick. There's a break-even point where when you're doing a boost, 4% boost is going to be more than 5% normal damage increase, right? Never mind that it takes 50 seconds to build up. There's just like once you have a certain amount of normal attack increase, you're literally just going to get more out of a boost than the increase, and it's for
because it's a boost.
Marches now.
Oh, so the boost is different than like getting the normal attack.
Right. So like my thing is, if you go back to destructive, the first part is a 3.5% normal damage boost. Nothing else in that slot has that. Right. We want to talk about the second part, which by the way, the second part isn't that good. It's not. Right. And that math is actually really easy. Can you open in destructive real quick?
Yeah, I've got it here. I mean, when Bile did the testing, the damage increase that the 70% attack gave was like very negligible, right? It was just like this tiny amount of white damage.
Right. So here's why I don't think it's that good, right? The second part. Now, it doesn't mean it's bad because it's combined with the first part. So if you spend 100 rage, right? And then you're increasing your basic attack by 70%. Basic attack is about 200 damage factor, right? So if you increase that by 70%, that's 140 damage factor for 100 rage, right? You times that by 10, 1,000 rage, which is how much it takes. That's 1,400 damage factor. So essentially, your rage is going to allow you to do something about the equivalent of 1,400 damage factor. Right, like rage per damage output. That's what you're getting out of it. It's not good, right? If this was like 140%, now you're getting 2,800 damage factor,
which is like a skill. That's a very good skill.
Which is about saying, you're like, okay, that's comparable. It's kind of like an instant proc, like it's kind of worth it, right? Like that's actually just a really simple way to look at it, right? You're literally getting the 100 rage times 10, which is 1,000. It'll come out to about 1400. That part's not that good, right? It's not like god awful, because I would argue that instant proc is better than an active skill, because the instant proc could go off at any time, right? So like if you actually launch it before 10 turn 9, right, you're coming out ahead. And there's lots of times when you're in the open field where you're going to launch something before turn 9 and then drop rage and then like start over again or whatever, right? So there's like a lot of dynamic in all these different scenarios. It's not a battle simulator. You're not dueling. You're not doing rally garrison. It's actually like free flowing. There's like, you're going to drop rage. And anyone's like, oh, I stay in combat all the time. I've seen people play. You don't stay in combat all the time. There's all these things that are going on, right? But
kill
if you
people,
combine
kill people and lose combat.
Yeah, you kill some. Yeah, if you kill someone and no one's targeting you, you drop rage. Right? If you kill someone and no one's actually targeting you, you drop rage. So you combine the first part, destructive, which is clearly the best in slot, right, with the second part, which is mid. I wouldn't say it's bad. You're not like just losing rage for nothing. You're just losing rage for something that, like, is lower damage. Like, it's probably like 50% lower. You combine the two, right? It's still the best in slot. It's just not like overwhelmingly like super good. Now, straight to the point, the one on the instrument slot,
horn, yeah,
the horn, that one is the best one. It's actually not. I would take that over the 8% fearless.
It's not better than invincible, right? You're just saying in this slot, it's the best.
No. I think out of the 4 special inscriptions for Arch, I like straight to the point the best.
Really? Invincible's so good, though. Invincible's crazy.
Invincible's good. But
you get 12% more normal damage.
Right. If you look at Invincible, the first part is a skill damage resistance.
Yeah.
Which, like, at this point, there's combo attack, there's smite damage, like there's all these damage that it's like. And then the second part, you're only getting up to 12% when the target you're hitting is below 20%. Right. So like
target troop has lost. Oh, I always thought it was my own troops, actually.
Yeah. Well, no, if it's your own troop, then that would be even worse. Because then, like, if you're only at 20%, you're already not
for a rally, you're going low. You're going down to 20% in a rally pretty fast, right?
Yeah. Right. Whereas like Whereas like if you look at straight to the point, right, you get another 3.5% boost in the first part.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But then the second part, and here's the kicker. Here's why it's so much better than like pulverized. It's 2 seconds. Right. So like every extra second you do, the difference between like 1 second and 2 seconds, you're literally doubling the value of that item or the inscription, right? So the Ring of Doom is 2 seconds. It's great. When something's 1 second, it's literally going to have half as much value. So like the Ring of Doom, if you actually do the math with the cooldown and everything, it'll average out to about 10% damage. It's not 5% because it's 2 seconds. It's 10%. It's a little less than 10%.
Sorry, say that again. Ring of Doom.
The Ring of Doom is 50% for 2 seconds, right? If you increase something by 50%, but for 1 second, and then that means you're doing 5%, right, per second. But if you're doing it for 2 seconds, that math actually would double that to close to 10%. But there's a cooldown, so it's a little less.
So if you look damage, at like you're doing 10% damage on average across the entire fight.
Yes. Like it's adding but it's very boom or bust, right? You're either getting,
but on average, if you're getting 10% damage for an accessory, it's close. That's quite good, I would think, compared to a piece of equipment. I mean,
right. And then you have like Greatest Glory, which is consistent, but it's 5%, right? If you have, and then the people that want to say like compare the Ring of Doom to the Horn, right? Again, I literally made a video about this. I gave why I think X amount of rage is equal to about this much damage, right? I presented it. But like you have to figure out, okay, how are you going to compare damage versus rage, which is a time component? And then like, why are you comparing it that way, right? Like if you can't make that argument or at least explain yourself why, it's hard for me to take it seriously, because you're just saying something is bad or something is good, but there's no like comparison between the two. There's no opportunity cost. Like if I'm choosing a horn, that means I don't get to choose something else, right? If I'm going to do horn and drum, right? Why did you choose a drum over the ring? And like how are you choosing X amount of rage versus X amount of damage and why, right? But it was just like, oh, well, overraging is not bad. Yeah, no, yeah, you're not going to get hurt from overraging. But if you're choosing something that's causing you to overrage all the time, as opposed to giving you something that's giving you on average
10%
almost
damage.
10% damage,
Yeah.
then like you better make a very compelling case. Okay, if I'm launching the active skill a second faster, right? Like
What does it
every
give you?
15 turns.
And,
Right.
and that's
I
what they're
project,
arguing, right? Like that, the
yeah,
people who are saying like do horn and drum, I think they're making a qualitative argument where they're saying, well, this is what I see in the game. You're dancing in the field, you're going in, and this is real, right? When you try to get that skill off, when you're like,
yeah,
instead of being purely positionally focused, I'm just gonna stay until I get this skill off. A lot of times you
yeah,
get wrecked. You really just you're not paying attention
yeah,
to your positioning, A, but B, you're just staying a little bit too long to get that skill off. And so people are saying, this is what I'm seeing in the game. I want to get that skill off faster above all else. And I'll
right.
be honest, I can see an argument for that, right? Because you're like,
Oh,
you know what
I
I
can
mean?
see the
Because like
argument
none of
too.
us are doing max damage. We're all sacrificing
Yeah,
damage to like not get pulled out of position. And so
right. So here's
it's all part of that same choice, you know?
here's my the video I made, right? And it's just it's a gimmick in the game where there's a catch-up mechanism for rage. Essentially, I gave one March 5% attack. Attack's a lot lower, so it's not like 5% in like KvK crystal tech. It's just 5%. On the other side, with the catch-up mechanic, they were going to fire the active skill a second faster every time. Okay. The side with the extra attack, besides the turn right after the active skill and the one after, actually came out ahead. So the side that fired the active skill faster actually lost to the side that did more damage, right? And the only reason why I wanted to show that was just to kind of break people from this like idea that, oh, whoever fires active skill first wins. There's literally a difference in amount of damage output you have that the active skill can't make up for it, right? Because if I'm doing more damage until you fire the first active skill, I'm going to win every time, right? So turn 1 through 8 or 1 through 9, depending on, like the side that does more damage is going to win, right? And the turn where the marsh that does the active skill first, they're going to win that round, right? But then the side that does more damage is going to fire the active skill a second after, and then they're going to actually swing back ahead. So like out of like 13 turns, 12 out of the 13 turns, the side that does more damage actually beats the side that does the active skill a second faster. Right? So then is firing the active skill faster really worth that much? Right? Because okay, besides one turn out of 13, the other side was actually ahead the whole time. And that was the whole point of the video, it's just to show that. Like, just because you fire the active skill first doesn't actually mean you're ahead. It doesn't mean like you're going to win, right? There's literally a damage number that you can extrapolate it out to, where okay, if it's above this much damage, I would rather fire a turn slower every time, but do this much damage, and I would actually still coming out on top. That was the whole point of the video, and the math is there. It proved it. I could show the reports and everything. People that got it, they got it. The people that didn't still freaked out and say, like, this math is terrible. But like, this is, I like, this was just the math, right? So, if you disagree, come up with something that kind of has some of the components I was talking about, right? Which is comparing time to damage, talking about opportunity cost, figuring out if you choose this, what are you giving up, right? And then we could have a discussion there. So, anyways, all that to say, I don't like the second part of destructive, right? But like to make it seem like it's so bad, it's like worse than like fit or something. To me, it's pretty ridiculous. To me, it's still the best in slot, right? I wish it didn't have this part, or maybe like instead of increasing the attack by 70%, it made it 140. Now you're getting the rage equivalent of doing a 2,800 damage factor for 1,000 rage, right? I could stomach that. I could lose 100 rage to do something that is essentially like a very small instant proc, right? You could fire this on the very first turn, and then have an advantage there, right? Like whenever you have something that could fire or increase attack instantly, you have a time advantage over something that requires you to hit the 1,000 rage to fire it. which is why instant proc in general I'm going to evaluate over an active skill if it's the same equivalent damage.
So in the chat, PTI is saying, that is why I'm so confused at the moment. I don't believe either side. PTI, I'm kind of in the same boat, but listen, here's the thing. At the end of the day, PTI, we can ask people like Bus very simple questions. So I'm going to ask, to close this podcast out, which I can't believe we talked about destructive for this long, but it was a great conversation. I'm going to go back and listen to it again later to understand it better. But at the end of the day, Bus, you're looking at these two armaments that I have on my Attila Subutai. Which one is better? Retaliatory and Warcry or destructive?
I would take destructive.
Interesting.
Like, yeah. Do I think destructive is like amazing? No. But is it the best in slot? Yeah.
I mean, it makes me feel, it makes me feel good because I do have a very good destructive armament here. And I kind of believe you, the points you made about boost is very interesting.
I mean, it's two parts, right? Like people talk about it like you're just going to keep losing 100 rage. Like that's a second part. There's a 5-second cooldown. Like you can at most lose it. You can at most lose 200 rage in a skill cycle, right? But that's actually unlikely because it's only a 10% chance to trigger. So like you're probably going to actually, there's a 65% chance that you're going to have it trigger once in 10 turns.
Right, and maybe half that time, especially if you're a rally or you're a garrison, about maybe half that time you don't need that 100 rage anyway.
Even if you're not rally garrison, half the time when you lose 100 rage, you don't fire the active skill a second slower.
Right.
The rage cap is 220. You're losing 100. Right? Well, like if you want to extrapolate out to 20 turns, you're like, okay, well in 20 turns you're going to lose a turn. Like, okay, but is that worth skipping destructive? I don't think so.
I mean, hey, listen, I don't mind putting another gold inscription on this guy. That's fine with me.
Yeah, like trust me, like I'm the person that like, when people are like, oh, well, this commander is better because it's newer, right? We're like, this is better because it's a legendary. No, it's all just numbers. Right, like whatever is better is actually better.
No, it's KISS, man. It's keep it simple, stupid. If something's newer, it's just probably better.
Yeah, but it's like oh, it's special. It must be better. Like that's how I'm saying. I'm just saying like the actual like number makes it better. Like and nobody can actually test destructive. Just the second part because it's attached to the first part. Right? There's just no way. Like you can't do it in the battle simulator. You can't do it in the game because destructive is two parts. So if you want to like calculate and say, oh, the math of the second part's not that good, I'm not arguing with that. It's like it's the equivalent of 1400 damage factor on an active skill. That's like something good for like 2018. Not 2025. But there's a first part with it too. So yeah.
Cool, man.
That's why.
I like that we just have so much to talk about with this game. We got to like maybe half the topics I wanted to cover, but I think we're about I think we're about 3 hours in now. So
we're about 3 hours.
Yeah, we did a long one, very comprehensive, lots of good information. Appreciate everybody in the chat for hanging out. Appreciate everybody else who listens back to this later. Go ahead.
I will answer. Avesta's asking, "What do I think about the Smite armament?"
I thought this was the player Mr. Smith in my kingdom.
Maybe.
No, it's not. It's not. Because okay.
So
I was going to ask you about that. It was on the list, Avesta. What do you think about Pincer?
Yeah. So the very short version is, I don't think it will be worth investing, unless maybe you're a rally garrison. Right. Even let's just say like
on paper, it's better. Okay. On paper, is the default pincer of 10% smite damage better than the default arch formation of 5% normal damage?
So even if you're talking about dueling, the smite damage has to be like above a certain point, right, for that to check out. But that's only if you're dueling. Right. Whereas, like, again, when you're talking about open fielding, there's connecting, disconnecting. Like, you're not always going to keep firing your active skill and stay connected. right? So like if you think about like white damage is 400 damage factor, right, per turn. It's basic attack and counterattack. In
Okay.
10 turns, that's 4,000 damage.
Yeah.
Right. So the math is easy. You need to figure out a way where, okay, the combined amount of like smite damage with for 10% versus white damage and smite damage getting to 5%. Like when is the break even, and then when does like smite damage become more? Right.
Yeah.
Now, even if you have that, I don't think it's worth it, because it's kind of like you already have a 6-piece Dragon's Breath set, and then now the new meta is the two leadership, like the legs and the gloves or whatever,
You
right?
can't replace it. I will
Right.
never have
Yeah.
leadership set on my archers.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it is what it
You could
is.
you can make an argument that, okay, well, this is better, right? It's like, oh, see, with the health and whatever, it's better, right? But is it that much better? Like, no, right? It's maybe like a small upgrade. Now, most people at this point, if you're doing smite, you already went far enough down that road, right? Like the conversion stones, it cost 10,000 each, right? Where you could get 10 during KvK. If you have a special, that's freaking 10 just to convert it over. Like, is it worth it to like? And if you convert one over, then you have to convert the other stuff over or start pulling for that, right? So like, and then if you compare Pincer with Wedge, right? Is there a formation where you could straight up just get 10% smite damage, and then Wedge you can only get 5% skill damage? And skill damage, there's not as many ways to mitigate. I mean, there's way more ways to mitigate
Yeah,
skill damage
that
than
is
smite
rough.
damage, right? Like so one, they already have something that's worse skill damage right now. That also there's a worse formation, right? So are they going to make a pensive formation that's way too broken, like way stronger than Wedge? I don't think so for game balance, but they have to make it at least kind of balanced. And then two, like, so they're not going to make it that strong, right? For balance reasons, which I think they have to do. Then like, is it even worth it for someone to switch over from Arch into Pincer just to get some like micro like improvements, kind of like going from like 6-piece Dragon's Breath to like a 4-2 or 2-2-2 for Archer, right? Is it better? Maybe. Is it like more than like 2-3% better? Probably not. Right. So like I just don't see how, like, if you want to balance the game, and then with the way Arch works, which is going to benefit white damage on top of smite damage, that you can make Pincer uh, worth switching over, but not so broken that it's just like way too powerful compared to the other formations. Right. You have to balance it with the other formations that are out there. So that's why, like, I don't think it's worth it. If you don't have Arch and it comes out where, okay, this is like a little bit better, then it's just like leadership for Archer. Okay, you start crafting that. But if you already have your 6-piece Dragon's Breath, probably not. If you're Rally or Garrison and like all those little like micro improvements matter
You're a
more, I can see
Gorgo.
maybe.
If you're like the best Gorgo in your kingdom. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're talking about like millions of troops, like like on each side, and then like if these like micro improvements will make a bigger difference, maybe. But like for people that are like open fielding, even if it is better, which I'm not sure it will be, it's not worth it.
Yeah, smite is simply too it's too universal of a skill category or a stat category for them to make it
Yeah,
very strong. What I like, what the thing that I think is very cool is Tertio. Because
Tercio is
what
awesome.
I
Yeah,
see about Tertio is that it is OP. Like it's the
it is
inscriptions are like
very
really,
OP. Yeah,
really good,
yeah,
but and it allows players to customize. Like it's actually useful, right? Like if you actually build a
yeah,
Tertio set
yeah.
that makes you just safer when you random teleport, that's actually
Yes,
quite valuable for people. But it's a very specialized thing that most people don't need to worry about.
yeah. Like
And so like
Tercio is
that's
great. Yeah,
cool. Like
yes,
and maybe smite, as you're saying, if you're like a Gorgo and you need that extra 2 to 3% and you're a whale, it gives a whale, they should make it a little bit better. They should make smite a little bit better than Arch or a Gorgo, because then a whale has something to spend money on if they want to spend on, a few percentage more of stats. Um,
yeah.
I
So
think
like,
those are good. And I think if they keep going in that direction with armaments, not sure what else they could do, but you
yeah,
know,
I could see it being a Rally Garrison thing. I just, if you're just open fielding, I just don't see. I think that like they would have to do something stupid for it to be like you need to switch off of Arch right
well,
now
they
to
just
go.
would want to make more money. They just be like, well, we want to make a formation that everybody needs to build because we want to make more money.
Yeah, but
It doesn't have to be
it's not
that.
a
It doesn't have to be
winning
too complicated.
it's not a winning formula to essentially release something new
To
that
power
forces
creep
everyone to spend
armaments.
money. Yeah, like you're gonna lose a lot of people that way. You know, unless they just make it way cheaper or free to convert armaments, right? But it just be like, surprise, your set's already done. Like you have 4 special, or you know, you don't like destructive. You have 3 specials and pulverize or whatever. But now you need to switch over. It's going to cost you a couple $100, right? Or you know, 300,000 gems or whatever. Which is like, I don't know. I don't think, you know, we talk about them like, you know, want to make money and stuff, but I don't think they'll make it this obvious.
Well, I mean, I think they're going to have to come up with something eventually for whales to spend on because they're capping out on armaments sooner or later.
Yeah.
But we'll
Oh
have
yeah,
to
for
see
sure.
for
Yeah.
that down the road. I think they're probably also going to be reducing crystal tech a little bit. Nobody watched my video about that, but I do think, based on what Mad Phantom said, that they might be
Yeah.
reducing how much we spend on crystal tech. That all remains to be seen. Bus and I will be here to continue to cover all the changes to Rise of Kingdoms. We'll continue to talk about what's
Yeah.
happening in our own worlds. Do appreciate everybody hanging out. Khaled, thank you so much for the dono here at the end. Bus, anything to add before we close things up?
We have 6 more days until our migrations close. We're always looking to take some more players that are a good fit. If you're interested, migrate to sv.com or just message me in game, 92 bus driver.
Yep. And Bus has a great YouTube channel. The link is in the description. Be sure to throw a subscription to Bus if you haven't done so already. That's a great way to, just give him a little thank you for jumping on my stream tonight. And yeah, hopefully we do this again, man.
All right, man. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Cool. Talk to y'all later.
All right.
See ya.